Eldrick chuckled, shifting his attention to the quiet teenage girl standing shyly beside Amelia, her vivid purple hair cascading softly down her shoulders, complementing her bright purple eyes. And who is this young beauty? Is that little Arya? Look at how much she's grown. Eldrick smiled warmly, his eyes filled with gentle nostalgia. Celine immediately joined in, her eyes sparkling appreciatively. Indeed, Arya, you're growing up to be quite beautiful. Those lovely purple eyes and hair, truly striking. Reynold, Amelia, you two must be very proud. Arya blushed slightly, lowering her head shyly. Thank you, Grandma Celine, Grandpa Eldrick, she said softly, her voice polite yet timid. Reynold laughed warmly, gently placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. She's a bit shy, but she's definitely growing up to be quite a talented young mage. Eldrick stroked his beard, nodding approvingly, haha. Excellent. Talent runs strong in the family after all. Reynolds' expression softened, becoming slightly nostalgic. If only Lucian could see how our children have grown. A quiet, gentle silence descended momentarily as they reminisced, but Celine swiftly changed the mood with a cheerful smile. Well, today we have wonderful news to share. We've adopted a grandson. Reynold and Amelia's eyes widened in pleasant surprise. Truly? That's great news. Reynold said enthusiastically. I remember you mentioning something, Uncle Eldrick, but it's wonderful to hear you finally found someone. Amelia smiled warmly, genuinely pleased. We're so happy for both of you. Arya lifted her head slightly, her curiosity evident, but before they could continue, footsteps echoed softly from the corridor outside. At that moment, Orion entered the hall, followed closely by Rune and Fiora. His calm black eyes quickly took in the guests, observing the newcomers. Celine instantly brightened, waving him over gently. Ah, Orion. Come here, dear. Let me introduce you. Orion calmly walked towards them, his bearing unlike any 15-year-old youth should have. He stopped beside Celine, politely nodding his head in greeting, hello. Eldrick smiled proudly, placing his hand on Orion's shoulder affectionately. This is Orion, the grandson we mentioned. Orion, meet Reynold, Amelia, and their daughter Arya. Reynold and Amelia were best friends with our son, they're practically family to us. Orion's expression warmed slightly as he nodded, respectfully greeting them again. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Reynold stepped forward, smiling genuinely as he extended a hand toward Orion. Likewise, Orion. Lucian and I grew up together, so consider me your uncle from now on. Orion grasped Reynolds' hand firmly, wondering if he was this enthusiastic due to Lucian or Grandpa Eldrick. Thank you, Uncle Reynold. Amelia stepped forward gently, her eyes warm and welcoming. Welcome to the family, Orion. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Orion smiled back politely, nodding appreciatively. Thank you, Aunt Amelia. I'll keep that in mind. Arya remained quiet, subtly observing Orion. Her eyes were curious yet shy, occasionally meeting his gaze before quickly looking away. Celine chuckled softly, breaking the subtle awkwardness. Well, let's sit down comfortably. It's been so long since we all gathered. I'll have some refreshments served. Reynold and Amelia looked at each other, confusion evident in their gazes. They didn't know where Eldrick had found Orion. This all happened very suddenly. But they knew not to question the choice of Eldrick. He wouldn't make such a mistake. Soon, everyone moved to sit comfortably around the lavish couches arranged in the hall. Celine subtly nudged Orion to sit closer to Arya, making the young girl blush lightly. Arya glanced at Orion shyly, mustering the courage to speak softly. Nice to meet you, brother Orion. Orion turned his gaze towards her, smiling friendly towards her, sensing her timidity. Likewise, Arya. Grandma mentioned your talent is remarkable. Which element do you cultivate? He lied through his teeth, since Celine had never mentioned anything about Arya or her parents. But he couldn't just say it in their faces. Arya relaxed slightly, feeling at ease by Orion's gentle demeanor. I have a strong affinity for light. What about you? I haven't awakened yet, Orion answered honestly. I'll awaken next month, though. On the other hand, Rune and Fiora's eyes widened slightly when they heard about the light affinity. It isn't every day that you see a person with that affinity in Thunder Peak Kingdom. Arya's eyes sparkled with surprise and curiosity. Really? I thought you had already awakened. You seem older than me. Orion chuckled lightly, amused by her reaction. Oh? How old are you? Arya puffed up her chest. I'm 14 years old. She quickly glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. What about you? Search the oval fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Orion thought to himself in amusement whether he should tell her he is a week old. I'm 15 years old. Arya looked at him in confusion. I thought you were older, around 18. He chuckled in response. I do look older than I am. So, when did you awaken? She tilted her head. I awakened a few months ago. My entire room lit up when I awakened all of a sudden. Orion looked at her with a bit of surprise. So it was a natural awakening for you. You are really gifted. Arya's cheeks turned slightly pink hearing his praise. She lowered her head. Everyone was surprised when I awakened. Light affinity. Since my family is filled with thunder element users. Orion chuckled. It just means you are special. Affinity is also affected by one's personality. As the younger generation chatted quietly, Eldrick and Reynold discussed nostalgic memories, occasionally laughing over old adventures of Reynold and Lucian. Celine and Amelia talked warmly about Arya and Orion, exchanging knowing smiles as they observed the two teenagers interacting comfortably. The hall was soon filled with warm laughter and joyful conversation, and for Orion, this new warmth was gradually becoming familiar, another comforting piece of his new life. Orion stood in the hall, stretching his body. That was a fun evening. He glanced outside the window to see the dark night. Eldrick came towards Orion and patted his shoulder. Indeed, aren't they good people? I wanted them to meet with you so you can get familiar with them. Search the oval fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Celine looked at Orion and smilingly asked, So, how was Arya? Orion smiled remembering his pleasant talk with Arya, and just as he was about to reply, he saw her smile. His lips slightly twitched. Don't you think she is too young for me? She is only 14. You don't need to match us up. Ah, but darling, you are also only 15. And it's normal for noble houses to arrange marriages for their heirs early on. Celine calmly explained. Eldrick nodded along. That's right, lad. Most noble houses do this. And the age gap of 7 to 8 years is not a big deal. And it's not like we will marry you off right now. Just because some fucks do it doesn't mean I want to do it as well. My mental age is 20 for fuck's sake. He silently screamed inside his mind, and he also couldn't just tell them about his reincarnation or true age. But from the looks of it, even if he did tell them about it, nothing much would change. He slightly coughed. Let's talk about this later. Grandma, you mentioned they are from a noble house. Which house are they from? Eldrick and Celine looked at each other with a hint of disappointment. Their persuasion seemed to have failed. However, they wouldn't give up so soon. But they didn't want to push it as well, so they delayed the matter. Celine answered his question with a playful smile. You will get to know about it once you enter the academy. We decided that she would enter the academy at the same time you did, so there was no hurry. Orion heaved a sigh, seeing them give up on the marriage talk. Then I will head to sleep now, it's rather late. He quickly ran away after not getting to know the origins of Arya and her family. Eldrick helplessly smiled. I didn't know this boy was so slippery. He might just be shy. It hasn't even been a month since he started to live with us after all. Celine, on the other hand, tried to understand Orion's situation. Eldrick nodded and sat down on the sofa. I know, that's why I delayed his awakening by a month, so he can become more familiarized with us and the others. They both continued talking while the maids cleared the empty food plates from the table. I wonder what level her affinity is? Orion muttered to himself while walking back towards his room inside the dimly lit corridor with magic candles. "Why system, shouldn't you show me the stats of others as well?" he inwardly asked. Ding. The system will undergo its first major upgrade when the host awakens. Orion paused in his steps all of a sudden, looking intensely at the system screen. Will it finally have some use other than showing me my details? By now, most of the maids had already left for the maids' quarters to rest. So no one saw his abnormal reaction. System, what new features will there be after the update? That will entirely depend on the host. Orion lightly chuckled at the system's prompt, his curiosity thoroughly piqued. It's up to me? I wonder what I should ask for. Maybe something related to magic analysis or progression assistance? Or perhaps even harem building assistance? Orion mused to himself, gently stroking his chin. But after thinking briefly, he shook his head, dismissing the thought for now. Whatever, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. No use worrying for now. With that decided, he continued along the softly illuminated corridor until he reached his room. Entering, Orion stretched, sighing contentedly. It was quite an eventful day. Well, at least those two won't push marriage so soon, hopefully. He chuckled softly at the memory. He quickly went about his nightly routine, heading into his lavish washroom. After a brief shower, feeling refreshed and clean, Orion stepped out wearing comfortable nightwear, stretching lazily once more. It's nice to relax after so much reading and socializing, he mumbled, approaching his bed. I would have rather died than socialize this much in my last life. He chuckled to himself, thinking about his introverted past self. Soon, he slid under the soft sheets and felt a pleasant sense of calm wash over him. It wasn't long before sleep took him, his breathing becoming steady and peaceful. The morning sunlight gently peeked through Orion's windows, casting warm rays onto his sleeping body. He slowly opened his eyes, yawning softly. Sitting up, he ran a hand through his slightly messy hair. Another comfortable night. I could definitely get used to this lifestyle. Orion got up, stretching again, and went to the washroom. And soon after exiting, he made his way toward the door. Just as usual, Rune and Fiora were already waiting patiently outside. Good morning, Master Orion, both girls greeted him warmly, bowing slightly. Morning, Rune, Fiora, Orion smiled lightly. Shall we? Yes, Master, Rune answered cheerfully as they led him to his morning bath. Fiora shyly followed, her eyes carefully avoiding his. The familiar routine unfolded comfortably. After his refreshing bath and getting dressed with their help, Orion proceeded towards the dining hall, ready for breakfast. Upon entering, Eldrick and Celine greeted him warmly, already seated at the table. Good morning, Orion dear. Did you sleep well? Celine asked affectionately. Yes, Grandma, I slept quite comfortably, Orion responded with a gentle smile, taking his usual seat beside her. Eldrick chuckled, taking a sip of his morning tea. That's good to hear. I thought you might be exhausted after last night's gathering. Orion smiled and shook his head. It wasn't like that. I enjoyed spending time with Uncle and Aunt. Celine looked at him playfully. Oh? You didn't enjoy your time with little Arya? His lips slightly twitched. Of course, I enjoyed my time with her as well. Celine smilingly shook her head before she started to pile food onto his plate as usual, ensuring he had enough. Breakfast proceeded comfortably, filled with pleasant conversation and laughter. After finishing breakfast, Orion stood up, excusing himself politely. I'll head to the library now. There's still a lot of interesting stuff I want to read. Eldrick nodded approvingly, stroking his beard. Very good. Remember, if you have any questions, come find me anytime. Celine chimed in lovingly, or you can ask Grandma, too. We'll always be here to help you. Orion chuckled softly. Thank you both. I'll definitely keep that in mind. He walked away with Rune and Fiora following closely behind him. After arriving at the library, Orion leisurely began his studies, delving deeply into books on magic theories, elemental affinities, mana channels, political systems, and the history of Thunder Peak Kingdom, among other books. Rena and Fiora left to have breakfast before coming back and occasionally assisted him, bringing snacks, tea, or additional books upon his request. Just like that, days continued to pass comfortably. Every morning, Orion would wake up, bathe, eat breakfast with Eldrick and Celine, and spend the rest of the day immersing himself in study at the library. "It's been over 2 weeks since I arrived here, Orion muttered to himself, looking at the dim sky through the window. During this period of time, Reynold, Amelia, and Arya had come to visit once more, where they spent the entire afternoon in the garden chatting and playing. Orion and Arya's relationship improved as well, and they became good friends. He smiled lightly, remembering her. I was wondering why a noble's daughter like her was so shy and naive. Who would have thought that Reynold was so protective of her that she doesn't even have friends to play with and basically grew up alone? Saw the novel, fire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. But his expression soon turned serious. Now I have a basic grasp of this kingdom. But I haven't met any nobles from whom I can gain direct knowledge about this place. I only know the number of noble houses and their surnames. Some noble houses have changed since the beginning of the kingdom, but the 3 duke houses have remained standing like pillars supporting the heaven." However, his expression soon relaxed. "Well, it matters little to me. Once I'm inside the academy, my rank will soar like a meteor due to my talent. It won't be long before I won't even have to look at the noble houses. Elder Dragon has strength equal to a kingdom, from what I have learned from my inheritance. But for that, I need to live for 500 years. I might as well cultivate like a human and reach that rank within years," he thought to himself. Some things were there that he didn't want to speak aloud. Eldrick and Celine were both high-level mages, not to mention the other staff of the mansion. He didn't want to risk letting others know of his dragon heritage just yet. "I wonder how they will react after knowing I am a true dragon in human form." He exhaled a sigh before closing his eyes. He didn't know it, but the only reason Eldrick and Celine hadn't figured out his true dragon identity was due to his perfect human lineage. Otherwise, no matter how good a true dragon is at disguising itself, mages at the level of Eldrick can still figure out its origins. I will think about it when the time comes. For now." He peacefully fell asleep while thinking about which books to read tomorrow. Orion's eyes fluttered open, feeling something hard beneath him. Confused, he slowly sat up, blinking repeatedly as his vision cleared up. The next instant, his jaw dropped open in sheer disbelief. He found himself sitting atop a smooth, marble-like floor, and as his gaze slowly lifted, his heart skipped several beats. He was inside an impossibly vast, magnificent treasury stretching out endlessly, its walls and pillars shimmering brilliantly. Treasures radiating incredible auras filled every corner. Stacked shelves, golden pedestals, and crystalline platforms were covered with items that made Orion's heart race uncontrollably. However, he quickly calmed down and looked around warily for any other presence. After looking around, he couldn't sense anyone. That only made him more cautious. But this place had a strange familiarity with him. And as soon as his gaze landed on a shelf, he quickly stood up, his eyes sparkling in excitement and awe as he walked toward the shelf. Each treasure had a brief description floating gracefully in front of it. "This is..." Orion's voice trembled, looking at the first item before him. Dragon God's Fang, mythical rank, a sword forged from the fang of an ancient dragon god. Capable of shattering Kiliakosm. Orion gasped softly. What incredible power! He turned to another pedestal, feeling his heartbeat quickening further. Kiliakosm World Tree, primordial rank, a Kiliakosm World Tree, capable of birthing multiple Kiliakosm. Each branch can make a supreme rank treasure. His breathing became ragged as excitement overwhelmed him, his eyes shifting eagerly to other treasures scattered throughout the room. He hurriedly walked along the countless rows, each treasure seeming more impressive than the last. Divine Elemental Seed, lightning, divine rank, can bestow a pure, top-tier lightning affinity upon consumption. Sword of Timeless Judgment, supreme rank, contains the power of time, capable of reversing or stopping the flow of time momentarily. Inheritance Scroll of the Arcane Sovereign, supreme rank, grants full knowledge of all arcane magic arts. Orion felt dizzy with excitement. How can so many world-shattering treasures exist in one place? Is this a gift from Echo? His treasury? He eagerly explored further, almost breathless with wonder as he scanned more of the incredible items. Blade of Void Severance, primordial rank, a sword capable of cutting through all chiliocosms. Heavenly Wind Lotus, mythical rank, grants the consumer supreme wind affinity, rivaling true dragons. Eye of Origin, primordial rank, grants the bearer absolute perception, capable of seeing through all illusions and hidden truths as well as past and future. This is unbelievable. Orion's voice shook, the excitement in his eyes growing uncontrollable. He had completely forgotten his confusion, swept away by greed and desire, a trait deeply ingrained in his draconic instincts. Just as he reached out to grasp the dragon god's fang, a soft, fragmented voice echoed gently in his ears. Master. Huh? Orion paused, looking around quickly in confusion. Who? Master, please, up. The soft voice gradually grew louder, clearer, yet strangely fragmented. Orion's expression changed to confusion, then panic, as suddenly the vast treasury shuddered violently. No, wait, what's happening? He shouted, turning around frantically. The entire space around him began trembling, cracking, crumbling away. Orion desperately reached out for the nearest treasure, but his hands simply passed through like smoke, helplessly grasping empty air. No. No. Wait, he shouted in desperation, his eyes wide in horror. One by one, the priceless treasures vanished into thin air before his very eyes, fading into nothingness. The floor beneath him crumbled, dropping him into endless darkness. No! Orion shouted in helpless despair, watching the magnificent treasury dissolve completely, leaving nothing behind but a void. Young Master Orion! Please wake up. Rune's voice finally pierced through the darkness, fully clear and real this time. Orion's eyes shot open, breathing heavily as his vision refocused, realizing he was lying safely in his bed. Rune and Fiora stood anxiously at his bedside, concern visible in their eyes. Master Orion, are you all right? Rune asked softly, visibly worried. Orion slowly sat up, eyes wide, his heart pounding with lingering regret and sadness. He let out a deep sigh, calming himself before nodding lightly. I'm fine, it was just a dream. He exhaled another long breath, the vividness of the treasury still haunting him. Just a very cruel dream, he muttered, shaking his head softly in regret. You guys go wait outside, I will be up in a bit. He softly said to them. Rune and Fiora looked at each other with concern but still walked out. A dream, a fucking dream. He nearly shouted as his lips twitched. Was it Echo's doing? Was he playing a prank on me? He took a few deep breaths to calm down. The dream felt so real to him that he was still confused whether it was a dream or not. He dropped back on the bed, hand on his forehead. Looks like I need to go out more, my heart won't be able to handle such despair-inducing dreams. He wasn't at fault for his overreaction as well. Cherishing and pursuing treasures was the nature of true dragons. If there was any other normal true dragon instead of him, then he might have been crying already. True dragons treat their treasures as more important than their kids, and if they are given such top-tier treasures all of a sudden and then taken away from them, they will probably start destroying everything around them in extreme rage. After resting for a few minutes, Orion stood up and headed for the washroom before coming out and going for a bath. He didn't call for Rune and Fiora today since he wanted to spend a little longer inside the bath. Rune and Fiora knocked on the door, wondering what was taking him so long before entering. They looked at each other before nodding. Rune pushed open the door and entered. Master Orion, where are you? Rune softly called after entering the room. Master Orion, where are you? Fiora asked in a quiet voice as well. Call out a little more quietly, Fiora, I nearly heard you. Orion's sarcastic voice came from the bathroom side as he stepped out of it wearing a towel. Master Orion, you took a bath alone today? Rena asked with slight disappointment. What else? You wanted to take a bath together? He chuckled and asked back. That wouldn't be so bad. Rena seriously nodded her head, as if considering his request. While Fiora's face had turned beet red at their shameless flirting. Anyways, bring my clothes, I'm already late for breakfast. He looked outside at the morning sun before quickly dressing himself. Rena and Fiora quickly dressed him before following after him. A few days quietly passed after the vivid and despairing dream. Orion steadily fell back into his comfortable routine of studying books in the library and enjoying warm family meals with Eldrick and Celine. Gradually, the lingering disappointment from the dream faded away, but the spark of desire for precious treasures from looking at the dream remained in his heart. One bright morning, just after breakfast, Celine excitedly approached Orion with a cheerful expression, gently taking hold of his hand. Orion dear, you've been cooped up in the mansion for far too long. Today, Grandma will take you shopping to explore the city. How does that sound? She asked warmly, eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Orion glanced at her gently smiling face, and after a moment of hesitation, he softly nodded. All right, Grandma. It'll be good to see the city as well again. Celine's smile widened happily as she quickly prepared to depart. Eldrick chuckled lightly, shaking his head as he watched them leave. Haha, don't spoil him too much, Celine. Bah. How could I ever spoil him enough? Celine replied with playful disdain, guiding Orion towards the waiting carriage. Greythorn City bustled vibrantly under the gentle morning sun. The streets were lined with bustling stalls and shops, merchants energetically calling out their wares. Orion observed everything curiously from the carriage window as they approached the market district. Look, Orion. Isn't it lively? Celine exclaimed cheerfully, pointing at the colorful stalls and smiling faces of passers-by. It's the largest marketplace in Greythorn City. You'll find everything here, from delicious foods to treasures. Orion's eyes brightened subtly at the mention of treasures, his dragon instincts filling him with anticipation. Still, he calmly nodded, hiding his enthusiasm. It looks interesting indeed, Grandma. They stepped out of the carriage, strolling leisurely among the bustling crowd. Celine happily introduced Orion to numerous vendors, occasionally stopping to buy various treats for him to try. Orion eagerly tasted the various local snacks, from savory pastries filled with mana-enhanced meat, to sweet fruits infused with natural elemental energies. Everything is so delicious, Orion genuinely praised, savoring a pastry. Search the novelfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Celine's expression filled with affection as she softly patted his head, clearly enjoying seeing him so happy. They soon reached a row of jewelry and artifact stores, brightly decorated to attract noble customers. Orion's heart stirred instantly as his gaze landed on a sparkling gem display. He unconsciously paused, drawn toward the shining array of gems and treasures. A vibrant ruby necklace in particular caught his eye, gleaming softly with a fiery brilliance. Interested in something? Celine curiously asked, noticing his brief distraction. Chapter 25, Treasures on the Table Plus, Turn Off Reset. Orion quickly regained his composure, lightly shaking his head. No, I was just looking around, he replied calmly, hiding his genuine interest. Celine raised an eyebrow suspiciously but didn't press him further, instead smiling warmly. Let's go inside. Grandma wants to buy you something nice today. Orion's heartbeat quickened slightly as they entered the dazzling shop. He tried his best to appear casual, but his eyes secretly lingered on various shiny accessories and trinkets arranged beautifully inside. His draconic greed quietly stirred, desiring every shining item he saw. Celine laughed softly, noticing his subtle excitement. Orion, pick anything you like. Consider it Grandma's special gift. Orion hesitated momentarily, but on the inside he was overjoyed. He knew his grandparents were loaded with cash, so this little wouldn't matter. After careful consideration, he chose a stunning silver bracelet adorned with a deep azure gem. It seemed to be the most pleasant one for his eyes. Just this one, Orion said softly, hiding his excitement behind a calm smile. Celine, pleased by his choice, nodded approvingly and quickly purchased it without hesitation, also secretly selecting a few more items she noticed Orion had subtly eyed earlier. Throughout the day, Celine and Orion continued exploring numerous stores. By evening, they had bought several outfits, artifacts, local specialties, and even more shiny trinkets that secretly delighted Orion's draconic heart. As the sky gradually turned a gentle shade of amber, signaling sunset's arrival, they returned to the carriage filled with their numerous purchases. Lucan looked at all the stuff while shaking his head. Madame Celine is spoiling young Master Orion too much. Inside the carriage, Celine warmly grasped Orion's hand, smiling tenderly. Did you enjoy yourself today, Orion dear? Orion met her gentle gaze and nodded sincerely, a contented smile forming on his lips. Yes, Grandma, today was wonderful. Celine beamed warmly, affection filling her eyes. That's good to hear. We should do this more often. Orion's smile slightly widened. We will have all the time we want to go on small trips like this. She nodded her head, before her expression turned serious. Yes, for now we should focus on your awakening. Orion gently chuckled, no hurry, I still have a couple weeks left. Her expression froze. Lightly hitting her head, she chuckled, oh silly me, I forgot there is still time. They continued chatting while heading back home. At the entrance, Edgar brought a few more butlers who helped to take down the stuff Celine and Orion had purchased. Meanwhile, Orion nearly couldn't hide his excitement at getting so many new treasures. They might be worthless compared to what he saw in the dream, however, what he got here were real treasures unlike in the dream. He had Edgar move all of the things he had purchased inside his room. Celine smilingly looked at him before leaving. They had already eaten their fill in the market, so she left to sleep directly, while Orion left towards his room. Inside his room, Rune and Fiora looked at the shiny gems spread on top of the table. If one were to count all the money he had spent today, then 90% of that would be on these gems. Master Orion, did you really buy them all for yourself? Rune asked suspiciously. She suspected he might have fallen in love with some noble's daughter on the way and wanted to court her. Orion snorted lightly, who else will I gift these beauties to? Of course they are mine. Rune clicked her tongue in wonder. Each of them is a top elemental gem filled with rich mana. I reckon an average person can even forcefully awaken if they get their hands on a suitable gem. Fiora, on the other hand, looked at all the gems with shiny eyes, this being the first time she had seen so many treasures together. Haha, Grandma Celine really spoils me too much. He rubbed the back of his head while laughing. Fiora slowly raised her hand and picked up a shiny gold ring inlaid with a red, shiny yellow gem. Bonk. Rune karate chopped Fiora's head softly. OWI. Fiora quickly dropped the ring and grabbed her head, looking at Rune with a slightly accusing gaze. It's Master Orion's treasure, you shouldn't pick them up without his permission, Rune sternly said. Orion inwardly felt slight anger at seeing Fiora picking up his treasures without permission, however, he suppressed these emotions as quickly as they rose. He lightly stepped towards Fiora, whose body slightly shook in fear. Rune looked at Orion worriedly, not knowing how he would react. He slowly raised his hand, making Fiora flinch. Pat. He softly placed his hand on top of her before patting her gently. You can go ahead and pick any gem you like. I got more than enough already. He smiled gently and pointed towards the table. Rune heaved a sigh of relief, seeing him not taking offense, before her smile blossomed. Master Orion, will you not give your lovely maid a treasure as well? Orion's lips slightly twitched, he looked at her and smiled gently, of course, not. You can consider it as an apology for hitting Fiora. Fiora's cheeks reddened hearing his words. She shyly lowered her head. Rune's eyes opened wide in an exaggerated manner. Huh? I didn't even hit her that hard. She brought her hand closer to her face and acted as if she was wiping her tears. Just say you don't love me anymore. Orion felt like spanking all the cheekiness out of her, but he just turned around and gestured at the table. You both can take a treasure. Yay! You are the best, Master. Rune jumped in happiness before walking towards the table. SirTheAuthorFire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Fiora, on the other hand, just picked up the ring she had been looking at before. Orion's heart ached looking at the treasures which would be gone from him for good, but he kept a calm face. Soon, Rune chose a ring for herself as well. However, her ring was shabby compared to Fiora's. There was no gem in it, just a simple silver ring with little designs on it. He raised an eyebrow, looking at her choice. You sure about this? You can pick again, I won't mind. Rune softly shook her head with a gentle smile. This is enough for me. Hee, a gift from Master Orion. She clasped her hands and brought them closer to her chest. I will be sure to cherish it. Fiora looked at Rune's chosen treasure and hesitated to accept the one she had chosen. Orion smiled, looking at the two of them. Okay, now off you go. I need to sleep as well. He gently pushed them out of the room before returning to the treasure-filled table. His face darkened as he remembered what had just happened. Can't go on. This can't go on like this. His fist was tightly clenched as he remembered the events of the whole day. Will I really let these pathetic draconic instincts control my mood? I'm above these mere instincts. I'm a perfect true dragon. Dragon might brood inside his body, ready to unleash all around him, but he quickly calmed himself down. Will these instincts become stronger on my awakening? Or when I go into hibernation to grow up from a hatchling to a juvenile dragon? He paced around the room. He hadn't thought about this issue before, but now that he didn't want to lose his human identity. I'm not only a perfect dragon but also a perfect human. What do these names mean? The system gave these names probably because it doesn't have enough information about the bloodlines due to its low starting level. He tapped his forehead, thinking about various scenarios. In the end, he went to lie down on the bed. I will need to see what changes in my bloodlines as well as the system during my awakening. He closed his eyes, finally deciding to rest after all the events of the day. The next day, he began his usual routine, getting up, taking a bath, teasing Fiora and Rune, having breakfast with Eldrick and Celine, and finally heading to the library. Days continued to pass like this, each being as uneventful as the last. Arya and Reynold didn't come again during this period. Likely due to Eldrick telling them not to disturb Orion's study. Orion's main focus was on magic knowledge and the political landscape of this kingdom. Another interesting thing he found was the common enemy of the continent. The demons. The demons attacking this part of the continent are under the banner of 72 demons? But there is only a single name mentioned, Viper. He curiously looked at the depiction of a woman with dark teal hair flowing like water, wearing armor resembling black coral. Interesting, it's really too interesting. He muttered while gazing intently at the demoness. 72 demons of Solomon. So they are present in this world. He softly muttered. He had read a lot about the 72 demons of Solomon in his last life due to their huge influence in the world of fiction. But I can't be too sure, it might just be a coincidence, he said without confidence. But if they are really the 72 demons of Solomon, then where are Baal, Paimon, Asmodeus, Belial, and other high-ranking demons? Deeper is nothing but a small fry in front of them. He thought about it for a while, thinking about all the small details he had gathered after arriving in this echo. His eyes widened as he suddenly exclaimed, I remember him saying something about Kiliakosm. And if what I know about Kiliakosm is correct, then this world is but a mere small part of it. This would make sense why such a weak demon is here. He repeatedly nodded to himself, thinking he had figured it out at least. I wonder, will there be other mythical beings in this world as well? He looked outside the window. There were too many mythical figures that he wanted to meet. And with the blessings bestowed upon him, it was possible for him to stand toe-to-toe against them. Knock knock. Master Orion, we brought snacks. Rena's cheerful voice came from outside the door. Sar the novel_fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Orion closed the book. Come in. Rena pushed open the door while Fiora brought a tray filled with snacks and dessert. Orion looked up to see them placing the tray in front of him, his gaze slightly pausing at their fingers before a small smile formed on his lips. His days continued flowing before, finally, a month passed. The day of his awakening soon arrived. He stood inside a large hall of his mansion which had been emptied by the butlers. Eldrick and Celine stood in front of him. Orion, are you sure you want to awaken? You might awaken naturally in some time, Eldrick said with a grave expression on his face. Celine's hand trembled, but she held herself back from saying anything. Orion nodded his head. Yes, I want to awaken right now because I know I won't be able to awaken for a few more years due to my situation, he softly explained. He couldn't outright tell them that he was only a month old, and he would still need some time to awaken naturally. Eldrick and Celine looked at each other before nodding their heads. Then be prepared, since it is a forceful awakening, it will be painful, Eldrick said with the same grave tone. Orion gently smiled. You don't have to worry about that, Grandpa. I can handle a little pain. Celine looked at him worriedly. She knew how intense the pain of this awakening was. This was the reason there weren't mages all over the place, because no one wanted to experience this pain so early. And the awakening wouldn't be very effective at a later age. Eldrick nodded his head. All right then, stay back for a bit. Your grandma and I will create an awakening spell. Orion took a few steps back, giving them ample space to do as they wished. Eldrick took a deep breath before taking out a pouch filled with silver sand, a high-level material used for crafting unique spells. Only nobles could afford to use only silver sand to craft a spell. Most average mages mixed it with other materials to increase its quantity and stretch its value. Eldrick carefully poured the silver sand onto the marble floor, meticulously drawing precise patterns and runes. His eyes shone sharply with absolute concentration as mana flowed from his fingertips, causing the sand to glow softly. Celine, your turn, he said calmly, finishing the intricate base pattern. Celine nodded and stepped forward, reaching into her robe and retrieving several elemental gems that glowed brightly with radiant energy. It wasn't her first time creating such a spell. In fact, she had made it far too many times. But this time, the significance was different. She was making it for her grandson, so she needed to do her best. Each gem represented one of the core elemental affinities: fire, thunder, wind, earth, water, and ice. She carefully placed each gem into specific positions within Eldrick's formation. Orion's eyes sparkled subtly as he watched. Even from a distance, he could sense the overwhelming mana emanating from the rare gems. After arranging the gems, Celine gently took out a vial containing a shimmering blue liquid. Orion instantly recognized it from its mana fluctuation alone. Isn't that? Orion muttered softly. Indeed, Eldrick nodded knowingly. Pure mana essence. Extremely rare and precious, only the strongest noble houses have access to it. Celine poured the pure mana essence into the center of the formation, immediately intensifying the mana density within the hall. It acted as the final catalyst of the entire spell, instantly bringing it to life as the runes and gems reacted at once, glowing vibrantly and connecting seamlessly with streams of flowing energy. Finally, Eldrick carefully retrieved a golden crystal radiating dazzling light, setting it at the formation's very center. Then, he took out 9 high-grade mana crystals and placed them at key points across the formation. Orion immediately recognized the golden mana crystal as an exalted grade mana crystal, one of the highest grade crystals available within the Thunder Peak Kingdom. The rest were high-grade mana crystals, which were relatively rare even for noble circles. The grades of mana crystals were divided into lesser-grade mana crystals, common-grade mana crystals, high-grade mana crystals, and exalted-grade mana crystals. Most mages used common-grade mana stones, while noble houses typically used high-grade ones. Celine exhaled softly, taking a step back and gazing at their completed spell. The spell is complete. Eldrick turned toward Orion, his eyes solemn and filled with concern. Orion, before you step into the formation, remember the awakening process will be intensely painful, far more than normal, due to the potency of these materials. There is no stopping once the spell starts. Celine approached gently, her expression tender yet worried. Remember, dear. No matter how painful, you must endure and focus. Orion met their concerned gazes and confidently nodded to calm them. Don't worry. I understand, and I won't let you down. Eldrick smiled warmly, though a hint of worry couldn't help but flash through his eyes. Good. Now, step into the center of the formation and sit down cross-legged. We'll activate the spell as soon as you're ready. Orion took a deep breath and stepped forward, calmly settling himself at the formation's core. His draconic heart steadied as he recalled all the details he knew about the awakening spell. It extracted mana from the crystals and the surroundings before forcefully channeling it into a person's body, guiding it toward the sea of consciousness. The mana would crash down like a sea with violent waves, smashing into the sea of consciousness, trying to force it open and awaken it. If a person possessed one of the common elements, the awakening process was somewhat smoother, due to the elemental-rich spell pumping compatible mana into the body. However, if they had a rare or unique element, like light or darkness, they would need to rely on natural mana alone to awaken themselves. Orion knew that his awakening would be much harder than others for two reasons: his age and his lineage. He was too young, far too young. But he didn't want to grow slowly. From his dragon inheritance, Orion already understood the risks, no, the absurdity, of what he was about to attempt. The difficulty of forcefully awakening one's sea of consciousness depended greatly on innate potential. The stronger the potential, the thicker and more numerous the protective barriers. Most average humans had only a single barrier that is fragile enough to break through easily, though it came with an equally fragile future. Talented individuals like noble-blooded humans or higher species such as elves, draconians, or giants often had 2 to 5 barriers. Breaking through them offered vastly greater potential, wider mana channels, and stronger elemental affinity. But failure meant permanent damage. A halted awakening. Crippled potential. And true dragons? They stood above all. Every single one was born with 6 formidable barriers, nearly impenetrable to all but time itself. They didn't need to awaken. They simply grew, and their sea of consciousness would bloom naturally over decades. But he didn't have decades. He couldn't afford to wait and risk losing control to his draconic instincts. If he didn't act now, he feared it would be too late. And the only way out of this situation that he saw was this, awakening. He was taking a gamble here, not knowing whether the awakening would intensify his emotions or grant him more control over them. Eldrick and Celine probably allowed him to go through with this because they assumed he would awaken at most 3 or 4 mana channels. They had no idea what kind of absurd monster Primus Zalzarion Draconis truly was. He controlled his breathing and looked at Eldrick and Celine, his voice brimming with determination. I'm ready. Sar the Nelfer.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Celine exchanged a final, reassuring glance with Eldrick before gracefully raising her hands, guiding mana gently into the carefully constructed spell formation. Begin. Celine declared firmly. Boom. An intense surge of mana erupted instantly from the activated spell formation, enveloping Orion completely. Waves of vibrant, powerful energy flowed over him, nearly overwhelming his senses. The formation beneath him blazed to life, its intricate runes glowing with dazzling brilliance as they channeled mana into Orion's body. In an instant, pain unlike anything Orion had ever experienced in either lifetime assaulted him. It felt as if countless burning needles stabbed into every inch of his body simultaneously, forcibly injecting streams of turbulent mana through his veins. Beep. 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 Due to the enhanced mana senses from your dragon lineage, the host is experiencing pain at 100-fold intensity. He nearly screamed out loud hearing the absurd words of the system. A human couldn't even withstand the normal amount of pain, yet here he was, bearing 100 times that. He tightly clenched his fists, teeth gritting fiercely as he resisted the urge to scream. His heart refused to allow any sound of pain to escape from him, so as not to make Eldrick and Celine more worried than they already were, but beads of sweat rapidly covered his forehead. Outside the formation, Eldrick and Celine watched anxiously, their hearts tightening as they saw Orion's pained yet unyielding expression. "Endure it, Orion," Eldrick whispered, fists clenched tightly, eyes filled with a complex mixture of worry and confusion. The amount of mana gathering was abnormal. The spell alone couldn't have done this. But he pushed the thought to the back of his mind, focusing entirely on Orion for now. Inside the formation, Orion's awareness plunged inward, and he felt the raging torrents of mana rushing violently toward his sea of consciousness. The mana surged forward relentlessly, crashing into the barriers protecting the core of his mind with increasing ferocity. "Come on!" Orion roared inwardly, gathering every ounce of willpower he possessed, guiding the relentless flow of mana. Boom! The first barrier shattered violently, sending ripples of agony throughout his soul. Orion nearly collapsed mentally but steeled himself quickly. One barrier down, he muttered internally. Boom! Boom! Two more barriers shattered in quick succession, nearly overwhelming him. His body trembled uncontrollably, muscles screaming in protest, yet Orion's will remained unshakable. The mana from the mana stones began extracting, infusing into his body before violently surging everywhere, before converging toward his sea of consciousness. Boom! 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 3, 4, 5, he counted as each barrier to his sea of consciousness broke, one after another. The mana flowing into him grew denser, more aggressive, pressing against the final barriers with overwhelming force. Almost there. Orion growled aloud through gritted teeth, sweat now soaking his clothes, dripping onto the glowing formation beneath. Crack! Suddenly, the sixth barrier violently shattered, releasing a surge of energy that momentarily blinded Orion. However, the expected awakening didn't happen. Instead, the mana turned even more violent, he could feel a new layer of barrier inside the sea of consciousness. Seventh barrier! Orion nearly shouted out in anger, but his will didn't shake. He continued pressuring the barrier. Fucking hell! Let's see how many barriers there are. His body violently trembled as the mana in the surroundings grew denser, nearly converting into mist due to his resonance. Eldrick and Celine looked on in shock, they couldn't understand how Orion was gathering so much mana all around him. This, I don't think even those 3-barrier or 4-barrier geniuses can compare with him, Eldrick said speechlessly, recalling the prophecy once again. While Celine continued to look at Orion worriedly, clasping her hands together, silently hoping for him to be safe. Orion, on the other hand, continued breaking through the barriers. After the 7th, he shattered the 8th, before finally clashing against the 9th. Break! Orion shouted inwardly, exhaustion and unyielding will clear in his voice. Crack! 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 Boom! All of a sudden, the 9th barrier broke, and a tsunami of mana flooded his sea of consciousness, rapidly expanding it beyond the limitations of any human or true dragon, making it at least 10 times greater than a true dragon's sea of consciousness. Ding! Deeper has noticed your presence. Orion felt his mind expanding exponentially, overwhelmed by a powerful clarity. Just as he tried to heave a sigh of relief, his bloodline surged with even greater force. His dragon bloodline and perfect human lineage resonated, merging even closer together, yet there seemed to be something, a very tiny fragment, still missing before he could complete his metamorphosis and merge all 3 lineages perfectly. However, even this partial fusion elevated Orion to a whole new level. His body suddenly erupted in intense pain once again as profound transformations occurred. Bones strengthened immensely. Muscles grew denser. His senses sharpened to extraordinary levels. His very soul seemed to elevate in purity and power. The mana in his body surged once more, attacking the dormant mana channels next, instantly opening 3 of them. But it didn't stop. It continued smashing again and again, until all 9 mana channels burst open one after another. Outside the formation, Eldrick and Celine were speechless, feeling the earth-shaking fluctuations emanating from Orion's body. Yet that was not the end. His body began emanating intense elemental fluctuations that cycled through all known elements, leaving none behind. However, his fire and thunder elements shone the brightest. Did he just awaken 9 channels? Celine gasped, eyes wide with shock and amazement. Eldrick nodded solemnly, his face filled with even greater shock. And his elemental affinity, did he awaken all of them? And this level of affinity, it's far greater than mine. Somewhere else, in the outside world. In a lavish and elegant room, a young lady could be seen studying books. All of a sudden, she raised her head. Light, affinity? Light particles rose around her, as if conveying something, but before they could. A knock. Lady Arya, it's time for dinner. Deep within the Stormwood forest. At a volcano, where molten rivers flowed like blood through obsidian caves, a pair of ancient golden eyes slowly opened. A colossal dragon head, wreathed in scales like a crimson sun, with veins glowing faintly with dripping magma, rose from the heart of the volcano. Its massive horns scraped against the volcanic walls as it turned, its eyes narrowing toward the northwest, toward the distant skies above Greythorn City. A long silence. The wind howled. Then, with a voice as old as the world, deep enough to shake the ground, the dragon spoke a single word in the tongue of its kind. Anomaly. It did not know what had happened. Only that something impossible had just occurred. Matters not to me. Its draconic voice echoed once more in ancient speech, before it slowly descended back into the lava. Back inside the mansion. Orion continued to feel the mana rampaging inside his body. Ding. Limitless system evolution triggered, analyzing host anomaly. Reconfiguring modules. At the heart of the spell, Orion's body was drenched in sweat from the overwhelming pressure. His consciousness flickered, returning for a split second. Ding. System evolution detected, initiating first major update. Xianxia the novel, ir.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Analyzing host anomaly. Recalibrating system framework. New module initialization complete. Host must now choose a core intelligence type for the updated system. Choice required. Sentient core, an adaptive, self-aware system with personality and evolving intelligence. Non-sentient core, a purely mechanical system with no thoughts or emotions, functions with cold precision. Will only be updated during the evolution of system. Decision must be made within 5 seconds. Orion's vision blurred, consciousness on the verge of going out. The pain, the pressure, that he had endured made him reach his limit. The glowing system screen in front of him blurred and flickered. Sentient, he barely thought, the word forming more in instinct than clarity. Ding. Choice registered. Sentient core selected. Reconstructing system architecture. Initializing personality matrix. Please wait. Ding. Estimated time until completion, 5 hours 59 minutes. Orion didn't hear that his choice had been registered, nor did he see the timer. Before he could do anything else, his body began falling backward, unconscious. Celine's body quickly moved, reaching his position within a second as she gently held him, watching him fall unconscious. Eldrick quickly crouched down and felt his pulse. He heaved a sigh after checking on him. Phew, he is all right. Just unconscious due to extreme strain, both mentally and physically. Celine heaved a sigh of relief, but her eyes remained filled with worry, looking at the unconscious Orion. But his awakening, if someone were to learn of it, I fear he won't have a day of peace in his life again. Eldrick solemnly nodded his head. What kind of monster even is he? I don't think there is such a genius even in the empires or the hidden holy lands. Where did he even come from? Looks like that old Taoist wasn't blabbering nonsense. He might know even more about him. Celine thought back to her encounter with that old Taoist. Eldrick shook his head. We can't be sure of what he is planning. He is one of the strongest humans we know of. If he has some plans, then we can't interfere in it no matter how great our ability is. Celine heaved a sigh, it doesn't matter. What will come eventually. For now, we should take care of Orion. We can't be sure of his future, but we should protect him in his present. Eldric's gaze turned tender, looking at Orion. He softly nodded his head, yes, he has really suffered this time. I wonder how many barriers he broke, though. Anyway, let's get him to his room and let him rest. Celine said before picking him up. Eldric helped her up as they left the hall. Outside, Rune and Fiora stood waiting. Due to the spells of the hall, they couldn't hear or feel what was happening inside. They only knew Orion was undergoing a forced awakening. So all they could do, standing outside, was to wait and worry. They had heard about how dangerous it was to undergo forced awakening. The gate finally opened as they quickly looked towards the unconscious Orion. Their faces lost all color as they hurriedly went forward. Edgar and Helena also stood at one side, looking solemnly at Orion. Rune and Fiora might not have felt those monstrous waves of mana and the pressure, but Edgar and Helena did, due to their high strength. They couldn't believe someone undergoing awakening could produce such huge waves. Both of them walked forward as well, wanting to check his situation. Master Eldric, what happened to young Master? Rune bowed and asked, worry evident in her voice. Fiora clutched her skirt with worry while bowing. Celine smiled at the two little girls, feeling happy someone was so worried about Orion after spending such a little time together. Don't worry, he is fine. Just unconscious after undergoing his awakening. Eldric reassured them, waving towards Rune and Fiora. Take him to his room to rest, and keep watch over his situation. If something happens, then don't forget to call us. He ordered before handing Orion over to both of them. They bowed towards both Celine and Eldric before bringing Orion with them. Once the three of them left, Edgar looked towards Eldric and solemnly asked, Master Eldric, what exactly happened inside? I could feel the monstrous mana fluctuations despite the spells placed inside. Eldric looked at both Helena and Edgar, henceforth, you both are not allowed to talk or ask questions about his awakening. Let it remain a secret. Do not tell anyone that he awakened forcefully. Edgar and Helena looked at each other speechlessly before nodding their heads. Eldric left towards the exit, wanting to check how massive the awakening's influence was, while Celine instructed Edgar and Helena on what to do next. Rune and Fiora soon brought Orion back into his room, laying him down on the bed. Fiora looked towards him worriedly, not being able to do anything else. Rune placed her hand on his shoulder and reassuringly said, Don't worry, Fiora. Master Orion is going to be all right. He is only resting. Yet the slight tremble on her other hand betrayed her true feelings of worry. Despite trying to calm down Fiora, her own worry couldn't settle. Sigh, we don't even know what happened during the awakening ceremony. I just hope Master wakes up soon. She thought to herself, praying for him to wake up as soon as possible. Fiora still couldn't help but worry for Orion, but alas, there was nothing the two of them could do. She exhaled a sigh and turned to look at Rune. Let's get out of the room and let Master rest. She said softly before walking towards the exit. Search the nelfire.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Rune nodded and followed along. Ding. System reconstruction 99% complete. Warning, host consciousness remains unresponsive. Initiating mild neural stimulation to force synchronization. ZZZT, administering controlled mana pulse. Orion's body twitched slightly as a small jolt of energy surged through his sea of consciousness, shocking his nerves awake. Ding. Welcome back, host. System evolution is complete. Orion's eyes fluttered open, vaguely hearing someone's voice before it started to get clearer. Sentient core successfully integrated. Initializing personality matrix. Scanning available templates, Kulwani-san, Yandere Loli, Strict Head Maid, Sundara Princess, Mature MILF, Deadpan AI, Greedy Gacha Goblin, Clueless Mascot, Goth GF, Battle-Hardened General, Hyperactive Catgirl. Compatibility analysis in progress. Error, host's lineage strong resistance to mommy template. Error, host soul allergic to tsundere. Recommended match found. Selected personality, cheerful and lively assistant. Binding core consciousness, syncing tone and speech pattern. Ding. Hiya, master. Your adorable system assistant has arrived. Here to help you travel the whole world. Oh. And I come with surprise bonuses, greater than over equal to nabla less than over equal to, /. Orion looked at the flood of system prompts speechlessly. He grabbed his head, still aching from the strain of awakening. Ah, master needs to rest more. Your sea of consciousness is still adjusting to the influx of mana. Degree oh degree. Ugh, then why did you even wake me up, he asked, annoyed. He had already read most of the system prompts and also realized that the system had now gotten a personality. It wasn't me. It was the previous order of the system, I couldn't override that. And it would have been dangerous for the system to awaken while the master was unconscious. I should have gone with the cold, robotic one. No. Don't abandon me already, master. HIA. Orion heaved a sigh before sliding back to get the support of the bed, so. I awakened. Show me the system screen. Ah yes, the system. There have been major updates. You should look now, master. Limitless system version 2.0. Host, Orion, Primus Zalzarion Draconis. Title, Perfect Being, Limit Breaker. Age, 1/9000. Race? Bloodline, Human Emperor, Thunder Dragon Emperor, Fire Dragon Emperor. Physique, Human Emperor's Constitution, Fire Dragon Emperor's Constitution, Thunder Dragon Emperor's Constitution. Soul, Human Emperor's Soul, Fire Dragon Emperor's Soul, Thunder Dragon Emperor's Soul. Energy source, mana. Rank, Awakened/Hatchling. Mana channels, 9 primal mana channels, universally adaptable conduits capable of channeling all known energy forms. Passive abilities. Mark of Fate. Fire Affinity, Tier 7. Thunder Affinity, Tier 7. All other elemental affinities, Tier 6. Draconic Instinct, Suppressed. Dragon's Might. Supreme Mental Endurance. Active abilities. Eye of Revelation, Appraisal and Bloodline Analysis. Fire Dragon's Breath. Thunder Dragon's Breath. Treasures. Soulpiercer Sword, Bound to Soul. Inventory, 3 out of 10. Damaged World Tree Seed Sarch *. The novelfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Strange Stone. Minus 600 tons of meat. New module unlocked, Infinite Gacha. Tap into the unknown depths of the cosmic treasury. Each pull yields a randomized reward, artifact, skill, item, bloodline, world fragment. Number of spins, infinite. Caution advised. Sentient core, active. System assistant, please give a name, cheerful and lively. Let's get stronger together, master. Oh, and maybe find shiny treasures too. Heartsuit. Remove the last part from the system screen. Quite a lot of things have changed. But first, what is this infinite gacha? It's just as it sounds, it's an infinite gacha. The system evolved based on what the host wished for. Orion raised an eyebrow, and where does the system get these treasures from? Asterisk greater than over equal to nabla less than over equal to. I looked through host's desires and saw a magnificent treasury. I connected the infinite gacha with that treasury. Orion's eyes filled with confusion. He mulled over it for a bit before his eyes slowly widened in shock and horror. You motherf dash. Primus, oh Primus. A deep, archaic voice sounded inside the room, instantly halting the time of the entire world. Looks like you won't leave my treasures alone, huh? A young man with flowing white hair and deep blue eyes materialized in front of Orion, looking at him with a calm smile. Echo. Orion muttered one word before looking at the man in front of him speechlessly. Echo looked at him with interest. I didn't expect you to achieve the first major update so soon. And not only that, it's one of the most powerful system updates. Will you believe me if I say that I didn't wish for it? Orion pointed towards the screen, where the system's face was floating. Sigma, surprised face. Echo clicked his tongue in amusement. You know, lying is useless in front of me. The system will only update to what its host desires the most. And it looks like you were after my treasury this entire time. A drop of sweat dripped down Orion's forehead. Echo chuckled, don't worry. I'm not here to kill you. But I can't be having you take out stuff from my treasury without restrictions. He raised his right hand, making all the rules of the world bow down to him. Thin strands of golden energy moved through the air before covering the entire system screen and began rewriting it. Orion looked closely at everything. He knew he was powerless to change anything, so he waited to see what Echo had planned. The system didn't seem to have felt a thing, and soon a new prompt appeared in front of him. Ding! Infinite Gacha has been upgraded to Lucky Dra Gambling. Yes, gambling name is better than Lucky Draw. Echo nodded his head to himself, pleased with his naming sense. Orion's lips twitched, seeing the name of the now upgraded feature. He knew it was nothing good just from the name. Was this really necessary? Orion asked in a quiet voice. Echo smiled and asked him, what if someone was stealing treasures from your treasury? How would you feel? Orion thought about it, but he surprisingly discovered that he wasn't that averse to the idea now. If it had been before the awakening, he would have already been angry at the mere notion of it. Echo nodded his head. Good, looks like you have learned how to suppress your draconic instincts. Orion's eyes opened with surprise. But he heaved a sigh of relief. His gamble had paid off, he was finally able to suppress his draconic desires. So, how will this gambling work? He asked after looking at the system quietly looking at Echo. Echo smiled and opened a portal. You can ask that to your little friend. I was about to leave this Kiliacosm, but you managed to bring me back. Shaking his head, he left through the portal. The flow of time returned to normal. Orion walked towards the window and saw the birds flying and small insects in the garden making noises. He took a deep breath. Echo is truly something else. Sighing heavily, he went back towards his bed, lying down on it. Alright, tell me all the changes that have happened to the system window. Right up, greater than over equal to less than over equal to asterisk, oh. So, the first change is Master's age. The system previously showed the combined age of Master when he was an egg. But after the reconstruction of Master's body, his age was reset to 0. So Master is now a little over a month old. Orion nodded his head, sounds about right. But it feels weird to look at that. I don't want to look at myself as a 1-year-old. Add a soul age tab in front of my age. Ding. Age, 1/9000, soul age, 20. I updated the tab, Master. For all. Yes, good job, now continue. Orion chuckled and shook his head. Looks like the system was quite hungry for praise. Yes, so next, Master gained the title Limit Breaker due to breaking the limits of all sentient species of your world. It increases the chances of Master breaking the limits of himself, making even your breakthroughs smoother. Orion sat up in surprise. Wait a second, titles have effects and not just there to look good? Of course, the system won't keep something useless. Tell me, what effect does perfect being have on me? He quickly asked. That seemed like an op title to him, the effects must be even greater. The title is yet incomplete, Master. You need to achieve a perfect fusion in your 3 heritages for the effects of that title to work. TT. So a fucking fraud title. Orion shook his head. Anyways, why did you rename my bloodline, physique, and soul? That's because I didn't have enough data before, but after the upgrade, I got access to all of your dragon inheritance. From there, I scraped off bits and pieces and found out about the Dragon Emperor and Human Emperor. He instantly became curious. Oh? What did you find out about them? That they existed before. Orion waited for her to continue. Okay, and? That's all I could manage to find. Huh. Orion heaved a sigh. He expected too much from the system. After all, the system only knew as much as he knew about this world. He couldn't expect her to be omniscient. Any other small update? Yes. The addition of the Mana Channels tab. You have created the primal mana channels. They let you use all the known energy forms through your body. Fire, water, thunder, poison, arcane, space, etc. Orion raised his hand. He had already felt distinctly different ever since waking up. Something foreign yet familiar seemed to be flowing through his body. It was mana. He couldn't control it as he pleased just yet, and it was even harder after consciously suppressing his draconic instincts. He opened the system screen and decided to look at it himself. After giving it a quick read, he asked, "Alright, tell me what the tiers of affinity are." I read about them, but they weren't so high, and most of the information was missing or speculative. Hey! The affinity tiers are divided into 7 in small kiliocosm, with 7 being an unreachable tier that most beings can never attain. The majority of species can't get higher than tier 5 affinity, while true dragons are normally born with tier 4 to 6 affinity. Tier 6 are those who rule above all dragons. Your human emperor heritage gave you affinity to all elements at tier 6, while your dragon emperor heritage gave you tier 7 fire and thunder affinity. It won't show its complete effect just yet, but as you grow stronger, the difference between you and others will grow larger and larger. Orion nodded his head in understanding. They should also help me understand elemental spells faster, right? Of course. What others take years to learn, you can learn in minutes. Oh. Alright, now tell me about gambling, the main highlight of this update. He looked at the bottom of the system panel. Gambling, 0 draws. Ugh, I wanted to give you infinite gacha, but that old man overrode the function of the system. Degree. Orion gently smiled, don't worry about that. Echo is probably one of the strongest beings to exist. It's a given you couldn't withstand him. Forget about that and tell me what I can do with this right now. Yes. You can now exchange treasures or mana crystals for system points. And with those system points, you can make a draw. But he set the chances of obtaining higher grade treasures at an abysmally low level. He raised an eyebrow, how low? You have a 1% chance of obtaining a rare item, while anything higher, you don't even have a single % chance. He took a deep breath and asked, what about epic grade? 0.50%. Fucking hell. Orion nearly exploded. If epic grade is already so low, then the higher tier ones will be abysmally low. All his excitement for getting a new feature vanished as he heard these odds. Now he understood why Echo called it gambling. He really made the odds so unfavorably low that it was worse than gambling. Fuck it. Let's try this. He couldn't help but feel an itch looking at the tantalizing feature in front of him. He got up from the bed and came in front of the table where his gems were placed. Most of them were equal to common grade mana stones, with some occasional gems at high levels. Sar the novel, F.ir.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Count all of them, how many are there and at what level? He ordered while looking at the gems. But he wasn't feeling the same greed and possessiveness for the treasures that he had before. Ding. Calculations complete. There are a total of 78 common grade gems and 8 high grade gems. Calculating total SP. 18 SP. How is SP calculated? 1 common grade gem for 0.1 SP and 1 high grade gem for 1 SP? Wait, that doesn't make sense. He closely looked at the total number but couldn't make sense of them. Master, not all gems are equal in value. Some have higher concentration of mana while some have less. So in total, their value is at 18 SP. There are a few good quality gems among the high-grade ones. Orion nodded his head, good, then convert all the gems into points and make a draw. Search * the novel, F.ir.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Ding. Converted all the gems into SP. System points detected, 18 SP. Would you like to spend 10 SP to initiate a common draw? Warning, chances of higher tier rewards are exceptionally low. Orion took a deep breath, rubbing his hands together. I'm actually doing this, gambling in a fantasy world. What's next? A login bonus? We can have those too, Master. Coming soon in Update 2.1. I was joking. He shook his head and clicked confirm. Ding. Initiating draw. A wheel of fate spins. The screen shimmered with golden particles as a massive roulette wheel appeared midair, each segment marked with shimmering colors. Gray for common. Green for uncommon. Blue for rare. Purple for epic. Orange for legendary. Red for mythical. Gold for divine. Radiant white for supreme. Abyssal black for primordial. Half of the wheel was empty, while the other half was filled with various shades of gray and green, with the higher tier colors barely forming lines. The wheel began to spin rapidly, emitting an audible whir as a dramatic orchestral tune began playing in the background. Wait. Is that a Gacha BGM? Orion muttered. Hee, I found it in your memories. Oh, greater than over equal to less than over equal to, oh. He watched with narrowed eyes as the wheel slowed down. Gray. 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 Green. Gray. Blue. The pointer trembled, bouncing between rare and common. Orion leaned forward, eyes flashing with excitement. Come on, give me a miracle. Click. The pointer landed cleanly, on gray. Ding. Congratulations. You have obtained, common grade treasure, bonesteel sword. In a flash of gray light, a long sword materialized before Orion, floating in midair. It had a sleek black hilt with silver runes etched into the blade, clearly sharper and tougher than normal steel. Item info, bonesteel sword, forged from rare ores found in beast dens. Extremely durable. Unbreakable against materials below high grade. Orion caught the weapon midair, spinning it in his fingers. He murmured with a surprised voice, so common grade is equal to high grade treasures of this world? It's a decent sword. See. Master got something useful. And this was just the first draw. Imagine what you'll get if you keep drawing. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Yeah, after I sacrifice my entire vault to Echo's legalized scam machine. He muttered under his breath, but he couldn't help but feel tempted to try again. He opened the gambling screen again and saw. Gambling, 1 draw used, 8 SP remaining. Looks like I will need to think about gaining lots of mana crystals or treasures if I want to do draws on this. He swung the sword while thinking about ways of getting them. But something clicked in his mind all of a sudden, looking at the sword. Hey system, can I sell this sword to you? Can Master please give me a name now? I have been quite good to you and you haven't even given me a name. Orion paused in his track, thinking about it. He had forgotten to give her a name due to all the chaos Echo caused. He thought for some time before deciding, alright, how about Gacha-chan? Moo, don't bully me Master. Orion chuckled, alright, how about Lumi? Short for luminous, since your personality is bright like the sun. Kya. I like that, Master. // Orion laughed at her response, alright, can you tell me now if I can sell the sword I got from the gacha back to you? Echo set rules against that. Master cannot sell things he won in gacha back to the system. Looks like I'll have to hunt more mana beasts and look for ways to make money. Yes. Grind like a proper protagonist, Master. You never know, maybe luck will shine when you least expect it. And if I get another sword, I'm feeding you to a dragon. Sigma, degree. No. I'm too cute to be sacrificed. Orion sighed again. Still, a small part of him itched to try again, even knowing the odds. He said to himself in amusement, 99% of gamblers quit before hitting it big. I won't be like those losers. Lumi went silent as he closed his eyes to rest. His body and mind still hadn't fully recovered from the strain of awakening. And he finally got a moment to rest. Morning sunlight came through the window, casting a warm glow all over the room. Orion's eyes slowly fluttered open. His body felt much lighter now, and even his headache had completely stopped. He slowly sat up and stretched his hands with groggy eyes. Good morning, Master Orion. Good morning, Master Orion. Rune and Fiora greeted him as soon as he woke up. He slightly turned to look at them, seeing a water bucket and wet towels in their hands. What are you guys doing? He asked in confusion. Rune heaved a sigh of relief. It's good that you are finally awake, Master. It's been 3 days since you fell unconscious. Everyone was very worried about you. And we were just cleaning your body as usual. He looked towards Fiora, who quickly nodded her head in agreement. I was unconscious for 3 days, he softly muttered to himself, almost not believing her words. But he also understood that it was entirely possible due to the intense amount of mental strain he had withstood during his awakening. Master, it's really been 3 days since you fell asleep. Lumi quickly added. Orion slowly stood up from the bed and stretched again. His body seemed to have gone stiff from lying on the bed for too long. Let's go, let's take a good hot bath. He smiled towards Rune and Fiora before heading towards the washroom. Soon, Orion exited the bath wrapped in a towel. Feels like heaven after taking a hot bath. Rune and Fiora followed behind him, feeling relieved that he had finally woken up. Master Orion, old Master Eldrick said to tell them when you wake up. They have been quite worried these past few days because of you. Should I inform them? Rune softly asked, finally remembering Eldrick's words. Orion waved his hand in refusal. No need, I will go and meet with both of them. He looked out the window. They should be having breakfast right now. Perfect. With that said, he moved towards the room's exit and pushed open the doors. Fiora and Rune quickly followed after him. How long will he take to wake up? Celine worriedly muttered. Eldrick, who was sitting beside her, away from his usual head chair, patted her shoulder softly. Don't worry so much. We have already checked his condition and he's just exhausted. We just need to let him rest and he will recover naturally. Despite him saying this, he couldn't help but worry inwardly. They both had taken turns taking care of Orion and monitoring his condition. They knew he was stable, but they couldn't help worrying needlessly. I just can't help but worry. His awakening was something unlike anything we have seen. What if it left some lasting effects? Celine said, her voice filled with concern as she had no appetite for the food placed in front of them. The maids had left the two of them alone in the dining hall as per Eldrick's order. Eldrick silently patted her back, fully understanding what she was going through. They both had already lost a son, they didn't want something to happen to Orion as well. Whoosh! Just then, the gate swung open. The couple raised their heads, wanting to see who would enter without knocking. Grandpa, Grandma. Orion entered with a bright smile on his face. Eldrick and Celine both stood from their chairs, their faces filled with pleasant surprise. You finally decided to wake up, boy? Eldrick said with a berating tone, but he couldn't suppress the small smile forming at the corner of his lips. Celine elbowed him hard. Humph. You would have died 10 times over if you had gone through a ceremony like he did. She quickly walked forward and looked him up and down before circling him. Good. Doesn't look like there are any issues. Orion shook his head. I'm fine, Grandma. Let's go and eat. I'm hungry now. Lad, come. We have food prepared already. Eldrick beamed and invited him. All of them sat down at the table and began eating. Rune and Fiora had stopped outside to let them talk. Helena had already instructed them to stay out. Eldrick and Celine looked at each other while glancing at Orion, both wanting to start the topic but afraid it might be sensitive to him. Orion, despite having his dragon instinct suppressed, could still easily sense their concern. He pushed the plate slightly back and finally said, I know both of you have questions. You can ask them freely. I will answer to the best of my ability. Eldrick and Celine again glanced at each other, not knowing how to start. Dear, how many affinities did you awaken? Celine asked, posing one of the main questions. Orion took a moment to decide what to answer. He took a deep breath. I don't know. Eldrick and Celine speechlessly looked at him. After all, how could someone not know how many elements they had awakened? I mean, to me it feels like I can control all affinities. So I don't know exactly how many that is. He quickly finished before they started getting suspicious of him. Eldrick thoughtfully nodded his head. The basic elements of our world are fire, water, earth, metal, wood, wind, thunder, ice, light, and darkness. Then there is arcane magic or conceptual elements like space, time, gravity, holy, curse, soul, and many others. I have never heard of anyone possessing time or soul magic, though. Celine nodded in agreement. Even spatial users are exceedingly rare. Not even a single one in a trillion can be born. The only reason we believe these affinities exist is because of the mythical beings such as the Time Dragon, Space Dragon, Soul Dragon, and others. But even they are a unique existence, only one can be born at a time, or if the previous one ascended to heaven. Or so the legends say. Orion raised an eyebrow. He knew about the time-space Soul Dragon from his draconic legacy. They weren't mere myths but real dragon gods who had ascended to higher kiliocosms. They were only below the evil dragon Tiamat and the holy dragon Bahamut. But Orion, you have to know that just having all the affinities is not enough to master all paths. A human only has a limited lifespan. You need to focus on some paths to reach the peak quickly. You can slowly learn the other paths after reaching the peak, Eldrick solemnly advised. Orion calmly smiled. I won't do something so foolish, Grandpa. I will only focus on 4 elements for now. That should be enough for me to become versatile. Eldrick's lips twitched slightly. He wanted him to pick only 2, not 4. But it wouldn't be right to dampen the ambitions of a young man. Celine proudly smiled. That's my grandson for you. If you want to learn something, then you can always ask me. Thanks, Grandma. I will be sure to ask. Orion chuckled and waited for them to ask the question which he knew would come. Eldrick took a deep breath and finally asked, Orion, what exactly are you? Orion drew a sharp breath. He knew it would come, yet he didn't want to face it yet. Lying to the only people who had taken care of him in both lives would leave a bad taste in his mouth. Celine's eyes slightly widened. She softly elbowed Eldrick, as if asking why he had to bring it up. Search the novelfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. After much deliberation, Orion decided to tell them the truth. I am the human emperor. Boom. All the mana within the room trembled, twisting into chaotic streams of elemental lines and ancient runes. Words that had remained unspoken for eons were now confirmed by the will of mana itself. Eldrick and Celine's eyes widened in shock upon seeing the change in the environment. Never in their wildest dreams had they expected the child they adopted to be the human emperor. Even with the old Taoist's words, they were expecting at most a hybrid of a true dragon or a titan, or perhaps the heir of one of the 3 human empires. But this far exceeded their imagination. In the history of humankind, there has only been a single human emperor, the one who stands equal to the gods. Human emperor. Eldrick mindlessly muttered the words, as if recalling something forbidden. Celine's hand trembled, her heart filling with myriad emotions. How is this possible? Orion raised an eyebrow, confused at their extreme reaction. He thought at most they would be surprised. There are 3 human empires, don't they call themselves human emperor? I should have looked at this more deeply. Master, what if you told them you are also the dragon emperor? Nah, it seems like human emperor is already a bigger deal than they could handle. No need to put more pressure on their hearts. Grandpa, Grandma, do you guys know something about the human emperor? He curiously asked. He had received no legacy from the human emperor bloodline like the dragon inheritance. Eldrick took a deep breath. Human emperor was a legendary existence. Not only due to his immense strength but mainly due to his inhuman intelligence. He grew silent, speaking up to this point, silently recalling the details. Orion's curiosity piqued here. He wanted to know what his human emperor heritage entailed. Selene took a deep breath and continued in his stead. He led all the myriad races of the Zarathal realm and negotiated with the demon gods and the holy gods on our behalf. But that wasn't all, he also participated in their war as a mercenary, helping whoever offered the most benefits to us humanoid races. HIA. Eldrick exhaled a sigh. He brought true prosperity to our races. Multiple demigods and uncountable Empyrean-level powerhouses were born in our races under his rule. Selene and Eldrick glanced at each other, their eyes asking if Orion was ready for the next part or not. However, one day, the human emperor made a contract with a foreign being. No one knows where that being came from or what it truly desired. We only know that all hell broke loose as the 72 demons and their ancestral gods, along with the holy gods, started a hunt so massive that it shattered the entire Zarathal realm and fragmented it. Orion waited, and waited. And? What happened next? Did they find the human emperor? Or how did we survive? Wouldn't the demons and gods have killed us off by now? Eldrick helplessly smiled and shook his head. That's all we know, and it's only a legend. We are not sure if it's true or not, or if only some part of it is true. It's a really old tale. But somehow, these legends are passed down. Orion lowered his head. So, I just stepped into a huge piece of stinky shit with this heritage. If the demon gods or holy gods found out about it. You don't have to worry about that, host. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Orion's hand twitched. You can mask its presence? No. Motherf, then why are you jumping in the middle? He nearly cursed out loud, but held it in, considering her being his only true confidant. Nuo. You didn't let me finish. I was going to say your dragon emperor lineage can mask the presence of your human emperor lineage completely. He paused. Oh yeah, they should be at least on the same level if not better than my human emperor lineage. I can't be sure about that, host. From the looks of it, this human emperor guy was truly a mythical figure. And he might have even ascended to godhood on his own. Orion took a deep breath and raised his head. Thanks for telling me about the human emperor, Grandpa, Grandma. But I don't think I'm related to the human emperor. Eldrick raised an eyebrow. Why do you say so? And in fact, how did you confirm that you are human emperor? Just having all affinities is not enough to confirm this. Orion's brow furrowed. I just have this feeling, and during my awakening this name came to my mind. I have never even heard about him. Selene gently placed her hand on top of his. You don't need to worry, dear. We will figure something out. Eldrick's gaze turned heavy, but make sure you don't tell anyone else about this. This is much bigger than you can imagine. Even other races might try to hunt you down to please the higher beings. Orion helplessly shook his head, understanding Eldrick's worry all too well. I know that, Grandpa, don't worry. With that out of the way, do you guys have any other questions? Orion changed the subject after realizing he wouldn't be getting more information about the human emperor from them. Which elements have you decided to focus on? Eldrick took a moment to think before asking. He badly wanted Orion to choose thunder element so he could personally teach him some advanced spells later. Selene looked at Orion with shining eyes. You should definitely learn my runesmithing, my dear. You only need arcane affinity for it. And arcane affinity is just a glorious name for control over raw mana, to change it into runes, patterns, and symbols. Eldrick's eyes twitched. Let him make his own decision, you old hag, no need to influence it. Humph. What do you know? He would be naturally talented in manipulating mana, and his raw talent in it is definitely much higher than mine. Just imagine the heights he can reach in runesmithing. Even empires won't have someone of his caliber, much less this mere kingdom. Celine's eyes turned slightly fanatical at the mention of runesmithing. Eldrick shook his head, don't mind her, Orion. She gets crazy for runesmithing sometimes. Orion chuckled, well, for now I have decided on fire and thunder attributes, I need 2 more. Perfect. Celine jumped from her seat and came beside Orion, hugging him tightly. Fire element is great for making treasures with runesmithing. It will be the perfect combo. Eldrick also couldn't stop grinning ear to ear, he stroked his beard. Not bad, not bad. Those are good choices. Now as long as you choose good elements to focus on with them, it will be all good. Have you thought of any? Orion gently pushed Celine back and sat her down beside him before seriously considering, I haven't really decided yet. I do want it to be special. But not special enough that I can't even find spells about it. Celine also began thinking seriously, you already have offensive spells covered with fire and thunder, you need one for mobility and one for defense. Wind and wood is a good choice. Earth or metal would be better for defense. And yes, wind is the best for mobility, Eldrick interjected. But wood can also help in healing, it is multi-purpose for him. Celine argued. Light element would be better for healing then, nothing can come close to that. Eldrick shook his head. But then he won't have anything for defense. And wood can also help him in alchemy if he later decides it. Celine continued. How many paths do you want him to walk? Eldrick slammed the table. Search *the Nelfer.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. His talent would be wasted if he doesn't use it to its fullest. Celine also didn't back down. They continued this back and forth while Orion quietly contemplated which elements to choose. Fire and thunder are decided. Wind is good for mobility. Light would solidify my position as someone special. And I might also get recognition of the Skyfall Empire later, but I also need something for defense. I can't just flex my draconic physique in front of everyone. Master should just learn more elements. Your affinity allows you to grasp everything super quickly. So you can easily handle 5 elements. That's what I plan to do. Let's see if they can understand me. Cough, Grandpa, Grandma, I have decided what elements I will master. Eldrick and Celine paused their argument, turning to look at Orion with curious gazes. Oh? Tell us, what elements did you decide on? Eldrick calmed down and sat back on his chair. Celine also sat beside him. They looked at Orion, wondering what choice he would make. Orion calmly said, I will learn fire, thunder, wind. Celine and Eldrick leaned forward slightly, wanting to curse him for stretching out the last part. Wood and light. Huh? Eh? Both Celine and Eldrick showed surprised expressions. 5 elements? Are you sure about that, lad? Eldrick asked, wondering if he had thought it through. Celine took a deep breath. If he has said it, then that means he already considered it. And learning the 5 elements should be doable with his talent. He will just have to work hard. Orion nodded his head, yes, but that's not something I can't do. I will not back down from a little hard work. The room descended into silence as the discussion nearly came to an end. Eldrick and Celine had asked the most pressing questions they had. And Orion might not have been able to satisfy their curiosity completely, but he at least handled the situation well. Ah yeah, you can't just go around flexing 5 elements. That will attract too much attention, Eldrick suddenly said. Celine agreed with him, yes, it would be better for you to choose 2 elements to show in public. That's a given. I'm not idiotic enough to go around flexing my multi-elemental affinity without any power to save myself. I'll use fire and light in front of others. That will make me stand out while also letting others see me in a favorable light. Orion agreed with them and reasoned for his selection. Celine and Eldrick looked at each other with gratified smiles, their hearts holding a small bit of pride for having such an outstanding grandson, who was not only absurdly talented but also smart enough to hide that talent. All right then, enough discussion for today. Let's go out in the garden to talk more. It's still morning, so it would be better for my old bones to get some fresh air. Celine giggled and stood up. Orion laughed at her words. What are you saying, Grandma? If we stand shoulder to shoulder, then others might mistake you for my sister. Oh, you sweet talker, Celine lightly smiled, but her words were interrupted by Eldric's boisterous laughter. Ha 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 ha, this old hag? He laughed while walking out of the room. Xianxia the novel, ir.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Celine's hand twitched as she took out her staff. You were saying something, old bastard? Fiery mana began gathering around her, increasing the temperature of the entire mansion. Eldric's laughter paused as he slowly turned around. Cough, quickly put away your staff, you are making Orion uncomfortable. Celine's expression changed as she quickly put away her staff. The temperature drastically changed and returned to normal. She turned around to see Orion standing there calmly, looking at her curiously. Something clicked in her mind as she quickly turned around, that old bastard. Only to find that Eldric had run away toward the garden. She hurriedly gave chase, while Orion chuckled silently and followed them out. There, he saw Rune and Fiora standing quietly, waiting for him. Let's go, we should get some fresh morning air. I really thought old mistress would burn down the mansion again, Rune said while placing a hand on her chest and heaving a sigh. Orion paused in his steps. Again, he curiously turned around and asked. Why yes, master. Mistress Celine Bu burned down the mansion before. No one was hurt due to her absurd control over mana, though. Fiora finally took the initiative to explain something to Orion. He looked at her with slight surprise and patted her head. I see. Well, then I guess it isn't dangerous. I should also learn to control my mana in such a way. Seems rather helpful. Yes, master. Mana control is useful in a lot of places besides battle. Rune nodded along and walked toward the garden with him. They continued chatting as Rune joked about seeing the mansion's maids using mana to wash clothes and clean the mansion all the time. Soon, they reached the garden, where in the middle, both Celine and Eldric were sipping tea, sitting at a table and chairs in the center. I thought you ditched us, lad. Eldric smiled and gestured for him to sit at the table. Orion smiled and went there, sitting beside the two of them at the round table. Rune and Fiora stood behind him some distance away, awaiting any order. So, now that you have awakened, do you want to head to the Thunderhall Academy to learn the basics of mana? I hate to admit it, but they can teach the basics much better than us, since it's been far too long since we had to do anything with those low-level spells, Celine gently asked. Eldric nodded in agreement. Yes, if you want to go there, just tell us. I do want to head to the academy. And I don't see any reason to refuse as well. But the time I spent with them is too little. Eldric and Celine looked at his troubled face. Celine gently patted his hair. If there is something troubling you, just tell us. Orion raised his head. I don't want to separate from you so soon. He decided to come clean and see how they would react. Haha, so it was this. You don't need to worry. We will move to the capital with you. It's been a long time since we saw the scenery of the capital. Eldric slapped his thigh and laughed loudly. Celine shook her head softly. You don't need to worry about this, then. We will go with you. We have a mansion in the capital, quite close to the Thunderhall Academy. We can live there. Orion's smile brightened. Thank you, Grandpa, Grandma. Good, now those noble bastards won't be able to kill me even if I offended them somehow. He heaved a sigh inwardly. The one thing he was worried about was dying an unjust death by the hands of powerful nobles. Fufufa master planning his crimes before entering the academy? As expected. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. It's just a precaution, he inwardly replied. After all, he couldn't be sure that they wouldn't make a move just from Celine's or Eldric's words. But now, with them present, he had somewhat guaranteed that the nobles wouldn't make a move on him in public. When should we set out? Celine looked at Eldric and asked. There is still some time until admission in Thunderhall Academy starts. We will head out in a week. We should reach the capital in another week with all our people and supplies. He thought about it before giving a time frame. Orion nodded his head. Then we will go as you plan. I should be able to adapt to this new feeling in the meantime as well. Ah, yes, Orion, you can try to play with mana in the meantime. You can learn to control it better the more you use it. Just don't exhaust yourself, Celine gently advised. I don't know if it's even possible for me to get exhausted from simple mana training. My sea of consciousness is dozens or even 100 times larger than a human's. Orion curiously thought. He remembered that Lumi had told him that his sea of consciousness was 10x the size of a true dragon's. But he didn't know exactly how large a dragon's sea of consciousness was compared to a human's. He hasn't unlocked that part of his inheritance yet. Ah yes, here, take these, Orion, Eldrick said before taking out a bag from behind his chair. These should help you with practicing mana control. Orion looked at it, already feeling the dense mana it held. What are these? High-grade mana crystals. These should help you to replenish all the used mana while training, he calmly said before sipping his tea. Orion's eyes shined as he looked at dozens of high-grade crystals inside the bag. I will make good use of them, Grandpa. Eldrick and Celine smiled, looking at his excited expression before all three of them grew silent and began sipping their tea calmly. All the chaos of before seemed to have faded in the background as they silently listened to nature's music. Master, are you going to the capital? Yes. Will you go to the academy there? Yes. Are you going to learn magic there? Yes. Will you find a wife there for yourself? You what the fuck? Orion stopped in his track as he turned to look at Rena with a speechless look. Rena pouted and looked to the other side. You weren't answering properly. He shook his head. I was just thinking about what the academy or the capital city holds for me. I really want to just learn magic and go on to travel the world. Will you take us with you? Fiora softly asked. Rena raised an eyebrow at her but turned to look at Orion, wanting to ask the same question. Time will tell. For now, all three of us are too weak to travel the world. He shook his head and continued walking. Rena and Fiora sighed disappointingly and followed along. Orion returned to his room and ordered both Rena and Fiora to stand guard. He told them he wanted to take the day off from the library and came back to the room. He placed the bag on the table and rubbed his palms together. All right, Lumi, count all the mana crystals and tell me how many SP I got. Aye, Captain. Ding. Total SP calculated. Found a total of 57 high-grade mana crystals. 89 SP can be acquired. Proceed to extract? Damn. 89 SP from 57 high-grade mana crystals? Orion's eyes slightly widened. He remembered the exchange ratio was around 1-to-1 for high-grade mana crystals. The quality of these mana crystals is quite high, Master. You need to know there is a big difference even among the same level mana crystals. I see, that's good. Looks like Grandpa gave me good quality mana crystals. His heart slightly ached thinking about losing all the mana crystals he just got. Didn't I suppress my draconic nature? He raised an eyebrow, feeling something amiss. Master, you need to suppress it consciously all the time, otherwise it will keep happening. And it's not only due to your draconic nature. You are a little greedy yourself, hee. Makes sense. He closed his eyes and focused his will to suppress his draconic instincts again. It feels weird having to do this, huh? Anyways, change all the mana crystals into system points. Ding. Conversion finished. Master received 89 SP. SP equals 97. Orion's eyes started shining, looking at the amount of SP he gained all of a sudden. Time to pull another legendary draw, if I can do even half as good as I did during my 10 draws. He nearly drooled and quickly ordered, redeem 9 draws. 9 draws coming right up. Ding. Draw purchased. Do you want to spin one or all draws at once? Orion sat down on the bed, taking a deep breath. Only pussies play it low. All in. Ding. initiating 9 consecutive draws. The wheel spun in front of him, the familiar colors of trash and treasure swirling like a vortex. Don't abandon me now, Gacha god. He fixed his eyes on the screen. Ding. Draw 1, empty. His lips twitched slightly, but he maintained his composure. Draw 2, empty. Draw 3, empty. You have received, draw 4, worn out boots, common grade. Orion's eyelid twitched slightly. Good start. He muttered with a dark expression. Lumi's tiny avatar popped up beside the wheel with a nervous giggle. Hehe, Gacha is about patience, master. Surely the next one will be great. Greater than over equal to nabla less than over equal to. Continue. Ding. Draw 5, you have received, beast for ball, common grade. Effect, soft. Orion silently stared at the small tuft of fur that appeared in front of him. Soft? That's it? Lumi cheerfully chimed in. You can use it as a pillow if master sleeps outside. Asterisk greater than over equal to less than over equal to. You want me to die poor, don't you? He sighed towards the sky, already envisioning his poor fate. Continue. Ding. Draw 6, you have received, torn beast skin, common grade. Effect, can eat it to get poisoning. Orion let out a slow exhale through his nose. Lumi. Why yes, master? Remind me to strangle Echo if I meet him again. Okay. Degree. Ding. Draw 7, basic mana breathing technique, common grade. Effect, a beginner-friendly technique that teaches optimal mana breathing patterns to absorb and refine mana efficiently. Vital for beginners. Orion's eyes immediately widened in excitement, fucking finally. He closed his eyes to see information filling his mind. He quickly read through some part of it. Hehe, I told you, master, you will get something useful sooner or later, greater than over equal to 4 all less than over equal to. Orion exhaled a sigh of relief, looks like there is still hope for this. I was going to give up. Already? Degree. The fuck you mean already? I wasted all of my mana crystals and got trash in return. Anyways, continue the draws, my luck is finally turning. Orion huffed and quickly asked her to continue. Ding. Draw 8, you have received, Moonberry X10000, common grade. Effects, sweet, refreshing, with a hint of floral aroma. Said to calm the mind and is loved by elves. Poison to humans. HAAA, did Echo throw more random stuff after I got access to his treasury? I refuse to believe he will collect such trash. He grumbled and took out a moonberry. Sigma, master, that's poison. He ignored her and ate the whole berry in one bite. After chewing for a bit, he swallowed it whole. Not bad. Tastes sweet and refreshing. No wonder those forest dwellers like it. Ah, I forgot master is not a human. Winky face. Well, this is better than nothing. I can eat them when I'm bored. Continue, I still have a draw left. He stretched and said. Even if he didn't get anything now, he would be satisfied with the mana breathing technique. Ding. Xianxia the Ovalfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. 9th draw, you have received, Soul Imprint Spell, Slave Seal, uncommon grade. Effect, a sealing technique that allows the user to leave a binding imprint on the sea of consciousness of a willing target. The seal can enforce commands, protect the target, or prevent betrayal. Requires the target's full consent. Orion's eyes widened slightly. This is really something else. He tapped on the screen as a scroll appeared in front of him. Do you want to learn this spell? Yes/no. Huh? Wait, I can learn spells by just picking up a spell book. He stood up in excitement, not being able to hold back his excitement. I am master, only the spells you get from the system can be learned this way. Orion's smile froze, exhaling a sigh, he sat back down on the bed. I was expecting too much. Anyways, this slave seal spell sounds interesting. Lumi's voice turned serious. This is a rare control-type spell, Master. We don't know how others will react to it, so it will be better to not share it with anyone. And it's quite a unique spell. You will understand once you learn it. Oh? Then what are we waiting for? Let me learn it right now. He clicked yes on the system prompt that was floating in front of him. The book slowly turned into light particles before flowing into his head. After all the particles entered his head, he closed his eyes and waited. Boom! All of a sudden, his body shook, feeling as if someone had struck a hammer on it. He couldn't believe how overwhelming the knowledge of a single spell was. He gritted his teeth and grabbed the bedsheet, his forehead filled with sweat as he withstood the impact. Slowly, he calmed down and understood why it had been so difficult for him. Fucking hell, it's a spell above the exalted rank. No fucking wonder it was overwhelming. I warned you it was a high-quality spell. Uncommon grade is above 9th grade after all. I was expecting an exalted rank spell. Not a paragon level. He slowly calmed down and began examining the spell. It is divided into levels. I can use it at tier 1, but it will only be effective up to tier 3 beings. That's already quite good, host, after all, who can even control beings above their level? He shook his head and dropped back on the bed. Leave it, I still need to imprint it in my sea of consciousness to actually use it. That will take quite a bit of mana, and I don't even know how to control mana to make spells. You can start by looking at the mana breathing technique, Master. That might be helpful here. Orion swung his legs and sat up straight again. Yeah, I should look at it now. Knock knock. Master Orion, I have something for you. Rena's voice sounded from outside the door, and Orion paused in his tracks just as he was about to take out the mana breathing technique manual. Come in, he said. Rena entered the room with a big book in her hand, her face beamed with a happy smile as she put the book in front of Orion on the table. Here, Master Orion. Old Mistress Celine gave me this to hand over to you. It's a beginner's guidebook, it has everything a beginner needs to learn. From mana breathing techniques to the basics of spell creation. Orion, on the other hand, looked at the book with a dark gaze. Fucking hell, so even the mana book draw was useless? Master, the mana breathing technique might be a higher grade technique than this book. You better pray it is, or else I'm selling you on Temu for 3.99. No. Stop selling me all the time. How good is that mana training technique? He calmed down and asked Rena. Rena proudly put her hands on her waist. These are the best in the entire kingdom, made directly by Old Mistress. I doubt you can find something this good even after searching the entire kingdom. But she made it in her younger years, so something might not be clear enough. No wonder she told me to attend the academy. Looks like she doesn't want to misguide me in something she isn't sure of. He thought to himself, his heart filling with sweetness. Alright, then I will read that for now. I was just thinking how to start on training mana. He stood up from the bed and walked towards the thick book. Rena bowed slightly before walking towards the exit, where Fiora was looking at her with a slightly jealous gaze at her being able to act so friendly with their master. Orion opened the first page after Rena closed the door. On the page were written a few words with bold handwriting, basics of mana. He slowly traced the bold letters with his finger. He calmly flipped to the next page before reading it. Mana is the fundamental energy present in everything. It's the source of magic and power that all awakened individuals harness. Every living being has a unique way of interacting with mana, influenced by their race, affinity, and innate talent. Orion continued reading for a while before flipping to the next page. Mana breathing technique. The cornerstone of any mana training, the mana breathing technique allows one to intake and refine ambient mana. Proper breathing patterns significantly impact mana absorption efficiency, purity, and control. He carefully read the instructions, comparing them mentally to the technique he'd obtained from the draw. Quickly, he noticed subtle differences. Lumi, show me the mana breathing technique from the draw again. Orion quietly requested. Right away, master. Instantly, vivid information flowed into his mind, enabling him to meticulously compare both techniques. After a few moments, Orion's face turned dark, his lips twitching. Fuck. Grandma's breathing technique is superior. It refines mana more thoroughly, enhancing both purity and efficiency, and not only that, it's easier for beginners as well. It's really a fucking gamble to hope for drawing something good. He murmured, dissatisfied. Huh, I will just learn Grandma's technique then, no point wasting time with this shit. I only need to master the foundation anyways. From what I read, the main part for mana users is to imprint the spells in their sea of consciousness. Taking a deep breath, he sat down cross-legged on the floor, closing his eyes gently as he steadied his breathing. He carefully followed the breathing pattern laid out in the book, rhythmically inhaling and exhaling as he tried to sense the mana around him. However, it seemed unnecessary as he could feel the mana on his first breath. In fact, he could partially control the mana since he was born due to his draconic nature. With each steady breath, Orion sensed faint wisps of mana drifting around him. It felt like gentle streams, floating peacefully in the air. Alright, part 1 done. Now, time to guide it inward. Orion mentally instructed himself, recalling the guidebook's detailed illustrations. Slowly and carefully, he guided the faint mana streams into his body, feeling a mild tingling sensation spreading through his mana channels. The sensation gradually intensified as more mana flowed into him, refining as it coursed through his newly awakened mana channels. Time flowed unnoticed as Orion immersed himself in his training. Each breath became steadier, each mana particle clearer. His body began adapting to the flow of mana rapidly. Incredible, Orion muttered softly, opening his eyes after what felt like minutes but was actually hours. His body felt strangely energized yet calm, a pleasant warmth enveloping him. It was as if his body was ready to erupt but he could control it perfectly. He smiled slightly, clearly satisfied with the progress. Lumi, how long was I practicing? Xianxia the novel, ir.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Approximately 4 hours, master. You've made amazing progress for your first attempt. Your body has been optimized for mana now. 4 hours? It felt so short. Orion stretched his body leisurely, standing up. He glanced outside, noticing the dimming evening sky. Deciding it was enough for today, he closed the book gently. Training in mana is really pleasant, Orion smiled lightly. No wonder those mages in stores could stay virgins for half of their lives. Cough, master, it isn't so pleasant for others. Most take months to sense mana, while top geniuses take days. You took a single breath. Nothing special. All true dragons can do that much at birth. He shook his head and stretched his body. But even they take a few hours, he smirked at the end. Indeed, master. Your potential is limitless. Greater than over equal to 4 all less than over equal to. Chuckling softly at Lumi's enthusiastic words, he took out the bone steel sword. Swinging it around, he felt the balance of the sword in his hand. I need to learn how to use a sword. I can't just rely on mana for close-distance battle. He took a deep breath and held the sword in front of his chest. He started mimicking the movements he had seen in movies and anime in his past life. Ha ha ha, what are you even doing, master? You can't learn only based on your memories. There are more things involved, like breathing, balance, movement, stance, etc. You need a proper instructor if you want to learn swordsmanship seriously. Greater than over equal to nabla less than over equal to, /. Orion's body paused in his steps. You are right. I should put my swordsmanship training on hold until I reach the academy. He stared at the sword for a second before placing it back in his inventory. He dropped back down on the bed. So many things to learn, so many places to explore, so many spells to learn, so many mysteries to uncover. His face slowly formed an excited smile. Xianxia the Nelfire.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Are you excited about your future, Master? Yes, of course I am. I finally have a clear goal for what I want to do. In my past life, I was just mindlessly living my life, dreaming of reincarnating in a fantasy world and getting a system to do as I wished. He tightly clenched his fist in excitement. Looks like your wish came true after all. But is this all you want to do? Don't you want to reach the peak and become a truly immortal mythical being? Orion softly shook his head. The peak is lonely. And what's the point of gaining immortality if I won't be able to share it with others? Let nature take its course. I want to see how far I can go on this path. Don't forget about the mark of fate, Master. I can feel it subtly influencing your surroundings. If I have to guess, you becoming the human emperor was also influenced by it. His eyes became sharp as soon as he heard her words. He sat up straight. Can it control me directly? Is it good or bad for me? No, Master, it can't control you or anything. In fact, you're looking at it the wrong way. It's a part of you now, just like your dragon bloodlines. It is your own fate. But it is influencing the fate of everything, making you the focus of everything. It will bring both fortune and misfortune. He slightly rubbed his head. Why didn't Echo tell me anything about this? It's also the highest grade of treasure I got from the draws. I would need a few lifetimes to achieve all my goals. And this mark of fate won't give them to me. Do not worry, Master. For I will walk the path alongside you and will never leave you. Greater than over equal to 4 all less than over equal to. Orion hummed an acknowledgement with a gentle smile on his face. But I need absolute strength if I want to achieve all those goals. And for that, I need an unshakable foundation. His gaze landed on the beginner's guidebook lying on the table. Tomorrow, I'll focus entirely on mana control and breathing. Orion stood up and stretched again before walking toward the window. Night had already descended. The moonlight cast a calm glow inside his room, making him feel peaceful and silent. Knock knock. Master Orion, dinner is ready, Rena's voice came from outside. All right, coming. He turned away from the window, a small smile forming on his lips. Orion sat inside his room, focusing intensely on learning how to control mana. Small, azure wisps of mana formed around him, swirling around his body in a wavy pattern. But inside his body was a different scene. Mana could be seen rushing among his 9 mana channels, heating them up and adapting them to itself. Orion continued to do this with his entire body, filling it with mana before releasing it outwards. He wanted his body to adapt to mana completely, despite being a true dragon. Due to his perfect transformation, his body was more human-like than a dragon at this point, so he wanted to refine his body to adapt to mana as quickly as possible. He exhaled a long breath, azure mist seeming to exit his mouth as he opened his eyes. Looks like I will need a couple more days to optimize my body to the max. You have been practicing the breathing technique since the morning, Master. Will you continue or try something else? He slowly stood up and stretched his body. I should try to create a spell constellation inside my sea of consciousness now. Even though your grandma warned you not to mess lightly with your sea of consciousness? He chuckled. I'm not messing around. I will just engrave the slave seal spell. It is divided into levels, and the level 1 is easy, after all. Lumi asked in a slightly worried voice. But are you sure about this? You weren't even going to learn its element. It's just the darkness element. If I'm going to learn the light intent, then I might as well muddy my hands in darkness. He cracked his knuckles while smiling lightly. I feel like you will slowly start to learn all the elements. That's the plan for now. If I can't even master all the elements, then wouldn't this talent be wasted on me? He got up from the bed and sat down cross-legged on the ground. Closing his eyes, he remembered all the details he had learned of the skill from the scroll he had received. I see, so first I need to form a basic rune inside my sea of consciousness, which will channel my mana through it and change it into dark elemental mana. That's where you are special, Master. A normal human sea of consciousness can only hold one such rune. But you. I don't even know how many your sea of consciousness can hold. Well, my sea of consciousness is absurdly huge, even compared to true dragons. I should try to test the limit when I get my hands on more elemental runes. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, finally deciding to form his first elemental rune. He focused his will inside his sea of consciousness, looking at the vast empty void. He felt it was utterly empty. With nothing but azure mana flowing around him, painting a vivid scenery like a galaxy. It's rather empty, he commented, looking at the place. Well, no shit, Master. You need to form runes and create spells here to fill it out. And your sea of consciousness is much, much larger than others. That's why it feels rather empty to you. How large is it anyway? Tell me, compared to humans, since I'll be interacting with them the most, and I doubt I will come in contact with dragons anytime soon, he asked while wandering inside. It is 100 times larger compared to a human's, Master. Oh? So, true dragons have only 10 times larger sea of consciousness than humans? That's rather small compared to what I thought. He moved through a few layers of azure mist. That's because true dragons rely on their body more than spells. And their main ability, dragon breath, is enough to overwhelm most spells. He paused in his steps as he came across a glowing orb of energy. It held complex runes swirling inside it like a galaxy. He tried to focus his gaze on it, to see all of its mysteries. His gaze penetrated the first layer before his sea of consciousness abruptly shook. He hurriedly retracted his gaze and looked to the other side. Is this eye of revelation? Indeed, Master. All of your passive and active skills are inside your sea of consciousness. But since you can only handle the first level of the sea of consciousness, Echo placed seals upon the ability. You'll need to increase your strength and break off these seals. I see. Then I will get away from here. He began drifting in a different direction without further checking on the Eye of Revelation rune. He had felt his entire sea of consciousness on the verge of crumbling if he continued trying to look into the second layer of the rune. He didn't want to take the risk just yet and began looking for other runes. Soon, he reached another place, where 2 runes with different elements were placed side by side. Both runes had complex lines interweaving inside them, yet they seemed to be the simplest things in the world in Orion's eyes. Fire Dragon's Breath and Thunder Dragon's Breath. He murmured, looking at the runes. Your current body won't be able to use these abilities, Master. You can forcefully activate them, but that might rupture your throat and mouth, so I wouldn't advise that. You seem rather serious right now. What happened to my cheerful little Lumi? He curiously asked, ignoring the dragon breath ability as he knew he would be able to use it sooner or later. Hee, it's just that this is a serious matter. I don't want to mess up here. It's your first time exploring your sea of consciousness after all. Orion lightly smiled and continued traveling. In the distance, behind the dense layer of azure mist, he felt a bone-chilling aura. His eyes narrowed as he cautiously stepped across the mist. There, he saw a sword floating menacingly all alone, exuding a chilling presence. Soulpiercer. Sword, he softly muttered its name. The sword had a sleek design, with a dark black blade and a hilt with dragon engravings. It seemed to exude a predator's presence from its very core. He took a deep breath and moved closer to the sword. Boom. The sword released a wave of chilling sword aura, pushing his will back. Orion's eyes chilled. Who do you think you are? His sea of consciousness flooded with an aura even more primal and supreme than a true dragon's. He activated his dragon's might, but it wasn't any dragon's might, it was a true emperor's might. All the sword aura got pushed back toward the sword. But it didn't relent and instead pulsed with an even stronger aura, trying to suppress not only Orion's will but his very soul. You might have had a chance in the outside world, but this is my world, he roared before infusing both of his dragon lineage might and suppressing the sword completely. Walking closer toward the sword, he grabbed the hilt and swung it around. Not bad, quite a decent sword. He nodded in appreciation before placing it back in its place. The sword trembled slightly, showing clear signs of disobedience. Echo, MF, you really didn't let me have it easy, huh? A damn sentient sword that doesn't listen to me. He took a deep breath and withdrew all of his aura. The sword trembled but didn't attack him again, seemingly realizing that attacking him right now would be useless. He turned around and walked toward the place where he felt the most elemental fluctuations. Master, are you angry with that sword? Lumi softly asked. No, why would I be angry? He lightly smiled and shook his head. Because of that sword's attitude. You're clearly the master of that sword, yet it dared to attack you. I so wanted to beat it up. He chuckled. I can feel its strength is sealed. Echo might have suppressed it even if not completely. It's way out of my league right now. No wonder it won't want to submit to me. It is useless for you at your current stage anyway, Master. Your body doesn't have enough mana to use it. Sir, the novel, ir.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. I know, no need to remind me of my weakness again. I should be able to find it, here. He finished saying while walking out of the mist. In front, he saw over a dozen shining globes of elemental energy, all swirling with different affinities. His eyes lit up as he saw the myriad colors forming in front of him. He sped up and arrived in front of one of the affinities. It seemed to be burning like the sun, melting all the mana that dared to enter within itself before throwing it outward. Orion tried to put mana inside the rune, but he lost all control of it once it entered there. These are my affinities, so many of them. Of course, Master, you have all the elemental affinities after all. You just need to use the corresponding elemental runes to make a rune around the globes to use them. Thought it won't be easy. He took a deep breath and began looking around all the glowing orbs before his eyes landed on a dark orb. It seemed to be spewing dark mana from its very core. Slowly, he moved toward it. The darkness affinity. I got a decent rune for it from the spell. Yes, Master, but I still think it's too risky. Forming an affinity rune is no joke and can seriously injure you. Even you won't be able to leave unscathed despite having the soul of 3 Emperor-tier lineages. Orion lightly nodded his head and said in a calm voice, but I want to try at least. At most I'll be slightly injured and won't be able to form a rune again for some time. But this is a valuable experience. Most others can't have it due to their fragile soul. Lumi became silent for a second before replying. Even your soul will be damaged if you fail repeatedly, Master. Then I just need to make sure that I won't fail again. He lightly smiled and took a deep breath before focusing his will on the surrounding mana. All the mana in his sea of consciousness surged and began swirling around the darkness affinity. All the other affinities moved further away from this place, giving Orion ample room to form his first rune. You haven't learned the runic language completely yet as well. Lumi quietly reminded him. Alright, enough. Let me try to form one now, or else you might really talk me out of it. It isn't life-threatening just yet. Orion said before calling forth the mana toward his finger. Just as the mana gathered, the dark orb of light in front of him pulsed with a dark aura, greedily sucking all the mana that he had gathered. He slowly fed it the mana before starting to form an origin glyph. Slow and steady, first I need to form an origin glyph to start forming the affinity rune. This step is the easiest and also the hardest. Gently, he guided the mana and began forming the origin glyph. The darkness affinity continued to absorb all the mana that Orion fed to it. While his hand continued to form thin strands of mana toward the faintly forming origin glyph, the glyph started to take shape of darkness, as if it was about to jump on someone to curse them. However, all of a sudden, the darkness exploded and threw Orion's will straight out of his sea of consciousness. Cough. He coughed out blood while placing his hand on his chest. Master. Lumi's worried voice quickly sounded in his mind. Cough, I'm Finn, cough. His lips leaked blood as he saw all his mana channels showing faint signs of cracking. He frowned his brows as the damage was far greater than he had expected. The hell, went wrong? And why the fuck is the damage so much greater than what I heard of? He took a deep breath and wiped the blood off his lips. I wasn't reforging a rune but making a new one. The damage shouldn't have been to this extent. Lumi calmed down after seeing him stabilize himself. Master, maybe it was due to your affinity level. And you failed due to your low understanding of the darkness affinity. You need to have a good understanding of the element you want to form an affinity rune of, after all. He took a deep breath and stood up from the ground, walking toward the bed. Huh. He dropped down on the bed. Looks like I need to spend more time understanding the nature of these elements before I can form runes of them. You started with a hard one as well. Light or darkness is not a simple affinity. Maybe you would have succeeded if you had started with one of the basic affinities. Whatever, but I need to be more careful when trying to form fire and thunder affinity runes. They might really rupture my entire mana channels if I try to form their affinity runes rashly. He placed his right hand on his face and closed his eyes. Don't need to be so depressed, Master. You had only awakened just a while ago, Philo. I'm thinking about how to explain my injuries to Grandpa and Grandma. These little setbacks aren't enough to make me depressed, he speechlessly said. I can't help with that. I know, that's why I'm wondering if I should just come clean to them. But then I'd need to tell them where I got my hands on an affinity rune. So many problems. Knock knock. Master, dinner time. Rena's cheerful voice came from outside, making Orion raise an eyebrow. Come inside, both of you. He thought for a second and said. Rena pushed open the gate and came inside with Fiora. However, their bodies paused and their eyes widened as soon as they saw blood on the floor. Mas? Ma? Shoo. Orion sat up and gestured for them to stay silent. They quickly placed their hands on their mouths and looked at him up and down to make sure he was all right. Master, what happened here? Are you all right? Rena quickly stepped forward and asked worriedly. Sir, the novelfire.net ** website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Fiora looked around the room for any sign of an intruder before walking toward him. It's nothing serious. I was just training in my mana and got a little injured. Clean up the mess and don't tell anyone about this. Orion said before standing up and stretching his body. However, his entire body froze as he felt a sharp pain all over. Ugh, this shit feels like the back pain I had in my previous life. That was due to your bad posture, Master. You should sit straight so you don't become an old man quickly. He slowly loosened up and looked at the two of them quickly cleaning the ground. He glanced down and saw his own shirt stained with blood. Shaking his head, he headed toward the washroom to take a quick bath and change his outfit. Rena quietly watched as he headed inside the washroom before she subtly shifted toward Fiora and asked in a low voice, "What do you think happened with Master? Was it really only an issue with his training?" Fiora glanced here and there before lowering her head and saying in a soft voice, "What else can it be? You think any intruder can come here with old Master and old Mistress present? Not to mention Sir Edgar and Madame Helena are there as well, keeping watch on everything." Rena placed a finger on her chin and nodded in agreement. What you say is true. Then should we notify old Master of this incident? Fiora frowned, her eyebrows completely turning indecisive. I don't know. Rena turned to look in the direction of the washroom. Leave it to old Master. If it's something serious, then it won't escape his gaze. Fiora quickly nodded in agreement as both of them stood up after cleaning the bloodstains and went to help Orion. He quickly finished taking a bath and changed clothes before walking out of the room. Don't tell Grandpa or Grandma about my injury, no need to worry them needlessly, he softly said while walking. Rena and Fiora quickly nodded their heads while subtly glancing at each other. They had already discussed this before, so Orion now ordering them to do the same didn't have much meaning. Soon, they reached the dining hall. Good evening, Grandpa, Grandma. He greeted them both with a smile and walked inside. There, the maids were placing food on the table while Eldrick and Celine were sitting, waiting for Orion to join them. Lad, you got here early today. Eldrick smiled and welcomed him. Rena and Fiora came by early to remind me of dinner. He smiled and took his seat. Eldric's gaze paused as he closely looked at Orion's body, his gaze sharpening all of a sudden as a dense aura exuded from his body. Who hurt you?